again. Decades of fakery he can't defend. David Wilcock is lying again, but karma always has its revenge. Fake insiders and secret space lies, fake bullshitters I try to disguise, fake stories I sell to the weak, fake stories I just repeat. David Wilcock is lying again. Decades of fakery he can't defend. David Wilcock is lying again, but karma always has its revenge. Fake stories, that's all I got. Fake stories, I hope you forgot. Fake stories, my history of lies. Fake stories, open your eyes. David Wilcock is lying again. Decades of fakery he can't defend. David Wilcock is lying again, but karma always has its revenge. Fake stories, my history of lies. Fake stories, open your eyes. Fake stories, my history of lies. Fake stories, open your eyes. My history of lies. Fake stories, always open your eyes. David Wilcock is lying again. Decades of fake lie he can't defend. David Wilcock is lying again, but karma always has its revenge.
Again, we have one hater. His name is Steven. He's going to be mentioned this week in the time loop. This guy's been stalking me for 8 years, and Ezra just outed him. It's really incredible. It turns out he's been attacking everybody in the community, not just me. All of the top people in the so-called truth movement are being attacked by one guy, and he always does the same stuff. And he makes death threats, and he tells you he's going to kill you. And he's apparently even been sending suspicious packages to people's doors. And this is now, it's not just my problem anymore. It's caught the attention of millions of people. And the top management of Twitter has now said that they're going to take very concrete, proactive steps to stop this problem from happening. And we should all be very grateful for that, not just for me, but because, again, it appears now that somebody's paying this guy to do this on a very, very widespread level. And he hates my guts. He despises me. I don't hate him. I wish he would stop, but he won't. So we are going to be suing him because he will never stop. If he had stopped, I probably would have let him go. But our company is very close to being funded, so he's going to be mentioned in these readings again. Session for Josh. And my bully, Steven, who's the guy that's been doing this for 8 years, the only one, I've been comparing him to Josh, and now actually, it's a common thing the last few weeks. He's started using the name Joshua because basically he seems to be obsessed with me. It's like a love-hate relationship. So he actually took on that name, and now he's going to have a new one this week. We'll get into that. I'm sure he's going to start using it. And again, Steven just talks and talks and talks, but if he ever actually did come here and try to kill me, I don't think it would work. I have all the advantage. I have the home advantage. I don't think that's going to happen. But these threats have been going on for 8 years, and now we find out he's doing it to everybody. And Ezra outed him in a very interesting way this week. And when I did my last show, he had stopped attacking me, but now he is back with a fury. Because again, I think a lot of it is that he's really pissed off the Alliance is coming after him. But you know what? You can't just go out there and attack people and threaten people's lives and tell them that they're con artists and frauds and vile and disgusting and not expect that something's going to happen. And even if you have fancy friends who protected you and they say, don't worry, if anybody sues you, you can use our lawyer. Good lawyers still can't win a lawsuit if there's evidence that proves that you're guilty. Even the corrupt judiciary, we can appeal. So look, it would be really great if he would stop, but I don't think he ever will, and so that's why we're moving forward with the lawsuit. Facing down against this satanic DS, seeing them for what it is. It also is, again, talking about Steven. He's just constantly telling me I'm vile, disgusting, pathetic, whatever. Little girl was scared of him. He scared the piss out of us both. There was nowhere to go. What triggers this first wave ascension? Well, there's been some pretty exciting things this week where we're finding out that the arrests are very close now. It's going to happen when the files drop. You have this particular musician who's in the rap industry, right? And as you are very well aware, this next month is where all of that is going to be coming out in the open. Not only him, but all of his cronies and colleagues. So it would make a lot of sense that they're going to drop the files around the same time that that trial hits the public, or even if the trial gets delayed somehow, the alliance is not going to be defeated. We are not going to be waiting until the end of the year. They have a slide that's going to be coming up where they show you that.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. We are here witnessing the delusional mindset of David Wilcock, who now is blaming me for some kind of Q-tard conspiracy. You may be familiar that previously he accused me of getting him swatted, which forced me to spend my family's money on getting body cam footage to prove that not only did I not get him swatted, he never was swatted. And then, of course, most recently, he accused me. Now we're up to, first it was $4,000 that I stole out of his bank account. Now he's saying it's $7,700 that I stole out of his bank account. He's accused me of sending him death threats, of cyberstalking, harassment. He said I was a terrorist and that I may get the death penalty. He is literally blaming me for every one of his detractors on the internet. No matter what anybody says that's negative towards him, he attributes that to me. He has previously claimed that myself and tonight's guests, John Spadavecchia, are the same person. Recently, he said that I sent a vicious attack to the CEO of Stavatti's wife as Spadavecchia. Well, tonight we're going to dispel that rumor. I didn't send that letter. It was sent by researcher and author, who, by the way, is writing a book on this whole Stavatti scandal, John Spadavecchia. We're clearly not the same person. He's going to be on the show tonight. We're getting to the point, now he's saying this is getting dangerous. Friends, it's all fun and games until major problems are created from him lying about me on the internet. He is saying I'm stealing money out of bank accounts. These are serious crimes. He's saying that I'm calling in SWAT attacks on him. That would be a serious crime. He's saying that I am sending death threats. That would be a serious crime. Now he's saying I'm sending suspicious packages to people. And, at some point I have to say, are you going to show any proof of this? Are you ever going to show any proof that I did any of these things? And recently on his latest live stream, he said, Steven just talks and talks and talks. Every time that I report something to my audience, most of the time we have receipts here to back it up. For example, when he said I got him swatted, we got the body cam footage and the police reports, which proved he was never swatted. So I have receipts. I don't just talk and talk and talk. But how many times do I have to prove myself innocent of David Wilcock's false and defamatory claims? How many times do I have to spend my family's money to get records that prove he's lying to everybody on the internet? My patience with this guy is gone. It's been gone. And every week I say, well, he can't say anything worse. And then he does. So tonight, we're going to do what we usually do. We're going to give you an update. We have several updates on David Wilcock's shady charity and his shady finances with that. We've got Stavatti updates and more. I will no longer be, let's cut to the chase too. Let's be very clear. David Wilcock is trying to stop me from the accurate reporting that we have done on all of his various scams, cons, and swindles. all of his various fakery, fraudery, and bullshittery. You may be familiar that it was me who ended the secret space grift with him and Corey Good by releasing those depositions under major legal threat not to do that. I did that. I believe that David Wilcock has developed, and this is my opinion, I'm entitled to it, he has developed a pathological fear and hatred towards me because he knows I am the destroyer of grifts. And let's be clear, I have never threatened anyone physically or otherwise. I have never sent death threats. I have never cyberstalked, harassed him, intimidated him. Any of that stuff interfered with his business. If your business is lying to people and me showing people the truth and showing people the proof that you're lying to people is interfering with your business, then so be it. But we live in the United States of America. I'm allowed to exercise my constitutional rights to free speech. I'm allowed to comment on some joker on the internet telling people he gets superpowers by taking baths in piss. This is America, David Wilcock. David Wilcock wants to be able to scam vulnerable people, many of them senior citizens, with no one being allowed to comment on it being a scam. You're not talking to angels, David Wilcock. There is no alliance, David Wilcock. That's a fictional construct, just like the secret space program. And you have as much proof of the alliance being real as you had proof of Corey Good going on secret space adventures, you dumbass. And this constant blaming me for everything that he sees is proof that he is a delusional psychopath or sociopath or something is not right mentally with him. But I'm not a psychiatrist, but I would highly advise him, having grown up around someone who suffered from serious mental illness. In my opinion, he's showing all the classic signs of paranoid schizophrenia. They see things and they blame someone and they pick a villain. He has created me as the ultimate supervillain, blaming me for everything. Now I'm attacking the Alliance, or I'm sorry, I'm attacking Q-tards. I'm sending suspicious packages. I'm doing there's some kind of conspiracy where I'm doing community notes to Q-tard grifters. I have never done a community note in my life. And now he's telling, oh, Twitter's getting involved and they're going to stop him. Go look at my Twitter. It's at Stephen Cambion or X, whatever. They haven't. Why wouldn't they suspend my account if I was doing something evil or nefarious? David Wilcock is a con artist, a swindler, a scammer, and a liar. That's what he is, and we've shown proof of that, as in the $60,000 that was scammed out of the UFO community for the Pete Peterson GoFundMe scam. That was a scam. Or the $50,000 that was scammed out of the UFO community for the Emery Smith PayPal donation scam. That was a scam. And we have all the receipts. We've proved it. What David Wilcock fails to realize, he keeps threatening to sue me. You're going to have to prove that I did every one of the things that you've said. You're also going to have to prove that I'm a child predator. Did you know that? He said I was a child predator. You're going to have to prove that I'm a Satan worshiper. It's getting ridiculous. And his constant blaming me for every evil that he perceives against him on the internet is proof positive that he is a delusional mental case that needs serious mental help. We're getting to the point, friends, where I feel this is totally true. This is the best analogy I could think of. David Wilcock, someday, very soon, David Wilcock is going to shit his pants. And he's going to start a public live stream and tell everybody that Stephen broke into my house and shit in my pants while I was sleeping and then escaped somehow. That's the point that we're getting to. It's getting so ridiculous. But joining me to navigate the ridiculous, wacky world of Wilcock is one of my favorite guests, John Spadavecchia. Let's welcome him in.
Hello, YouTube. Privileged to be back on Truth Seekers.
Next week, he's going to blame me for shitting in his own pants, John. That's where we're at. Like,
he's clearly in decline, and he's clearly losing it.
I believe that it's getting worse and worse every week because it's just escalating every week. You know, like, I don't know what, you know, and the funny thing is that he's trying to like make me out to be some anti-right wing, you know, like left leaning nutter or something.
Yeah,
And that is the farthest thing. Anybody that knows me would laugh at that. Like I'm like a political independent, but I'm very right leaning on many things, like the Second Amendment and fiscal conservatism, and
I think
I'm you know
I think he's trying to do several things with that. He's trying to expand the specter of your coverage to be like wider than it is, and he's trying to get other, YouTube or whatever influencers, I guess, on his side, or at least make his audience think that.
well, that's the thing. He's saying that I'm sending death threats to all these people. Why doesn't he have the people I'm sending all these death threats to on his show, and they can
Oh,
show their proof that I'm sending death threats. I've never and listen, John, cards on the table. Like we can talk like men, right? Like I have never sent anyone a death threat in my entire life. I just have never done anything like through the internet or phone call or anything verbally. I've just never done that. Like I'm not the kind of guy to just threaten, I'm not Mr. Murder. Deep state agent is here. It says we pay Wilcock. Due to Trump's budget cuts, we will no longer be able to use weather weapons on Saturdays. Thank you, Deep State Agent. One for the goal. I just want to get caught up, and then we'll get into. You've got a treasure trove of new information to share with us. Charles McDonald with 10. We just put a central banker in office here in Canada, so I'm smoking weed and watching UFO grifting. I heard what happened. All the conservatives lost in Canada apparently. Sorry to hear that, Charles McDonald. RP says, I was going to invest in Stavatti, but when I looked at the pictures, I think they were from 1992 Micro Machines packs. Oy vey. Don't invest in Stavatti. Invest in Truth Seekers. And thank you. Canada had a big L, says Sweepy Joe. So where do we begin tonight, John? What do you want to start with?
let's start with the latest information, which is the latest 990 form for his charity, and then we can just go from there.
Yeah, and you noticed something that I also noticed. There's a little bit of shady stuff going on, right? Do you want me to? I'll pull them up on my side, or do you want to share your screen? I can
Uh,
get it.
Yeah, bring up the ProPublica link that I showed you. So the IRS, let's first of all, let me just state from the beginning, the IRS is not my favorite organization, and that's me being polite. That being said, the IRS with these 990 forms, they have to be made public. They have to be provided to the public.
And for those that don't understand, I just want to explain. If you have a charity that you run, you have to file this 990 form every year with the IRS. And on that form, it tells the public this is how much money we took in and this is what we spent it on. And it might be a good idea to mention that David Wilcock has previously admitted that he has used money from his charity to buy cameras, software, and equipment that he then uses, and this is my opinion, but I'm entitled to it, that he then uses for profit streams, which would be highly a big problem and illegal, right? He's not allowed to collect money with the charity and then use that same equipment to make for profit YouTube streams, which he clearly is doing until I see proof otherwise. I have a clip somewhere. I'll try to find it as we go through this of him and his wife telling everybody, we bought all this equipment with the money from the charity that you guys gave us.
Well,
Like,
don't you have like a montage of those clips? Like there's more than one. There's like several instances
yeah,
where
I'll
he
try to
says
find it
exactly
as
that.
we
He
as we
basically
go.
says
Yeah.
this for-profit stream is brought to you by the Wilcox Spiritual Healing and Empowerment Foundation. He straight up says it. But so these 990 forms, the IRS makes them available in two formats. You can download them, in page by page version as like a PDF from the IRS website, or the IRS makes available an API to get these 990 tax data forms in structured data via like a REST API or something like that. So you have two methods to get this information. Now, Stephen, you've already covered the 2021 and 2022 forms in
And
an
20, I
episode.
think in 2018 and 2019 too. We did two separate shows on his shady charity. And what you need to know
Correct.
about his shady charity is that he's spending tens of thousands of dollars on software and equipment. And they spent $5,000, I believe, one year on meals and entertainment. And this is from charitable contributions. I've never been able to determine that they did anything charitable except take like a nickel. I think I worked it out before for some of the years that he took a nickel on the dollar he collected and gave that nickel to another charity, which to me makes me think, like, why don't you just give your dollar to that charity then? Why give it to David Wilcock, who keeps 95 cents and then forwards a nickel to some other charity? It doesn't make sense.
Well, we're going to look at that tonight because in this latest 2023 990 form, he's given way more than a nickel as charitable contributions. He's given 5 figures. So we're going to look at that.
Okay, yeah, I can share my screen here.
So anyway, just to finish what I was saying, that I noticed, last year you showed the 2021 and 2022 forms.
Mm-hmm.
David Wilcock apparently filed the 2023 form in October. I think October, the middle of October sometime. But interestingly, this form is not available in page form from the IRS, at least not yet. So I don't know what's going on there. However, it is available via the API, and that's what we're going to look at tonight. The website ProPublica has it available via this API, and we can look at this 2023.
Let me get that bigger for us here. Yeah, we'll do it this way. And so
right off the bat, we can look at the first page and go to the very bottom of the first page, and we're hit with a whammy, right? So the net assets for the 2023 tax year for his charity, the net assets are over negative $6,000. His charity is in the red. So right off the bat,
they spent $6,189 more than they took in.
Well, so we're going to look at his Schedule O, which shows what was going on. But yeah, he spent more than it has as far as listed assets, and now it's in the red.
So his charity is $6,000 in the red.
Correct.
But it's important to point out that he himself does not do any charitable work for all this money that he's collecting.
Well, we're going to look at that. His in this 2023 tax year, he made this charity made charitable contributions.
He's $15,000, $16,000 almost.
Hold on, we're going to look at that. So let's start. Okay. Let's start with line 22 right there, right? So at the beginning of the 2023 tax year, his charity had over $11,000 in cash.
There we go.
Ended the year with like $3,600 worth of cash. So it burned through a bunch of cash. We don't know why, but we can speculate as we go through this.
Okay.
As far as other assets like property, plant, equipment, and tangible assets, it started with almost $9,000. Now it ended, with just below $6,000.
So they lost $3,000 in other assets.
The total assets for the charity for this 2023 tax year, it started with little over $20,000. It ended with less than $10,000.
So that might mean that he spent $10,000 of the total assets.
Well, he spent more than that. We're going to get to that.
So David Wilcock.
Here's another thing. So here the next line, total liabilities. This is what the charity is liable for. It's what it owes. When you reviewed the tax forms last year, you noticed that his Divine Cosmos LLC, which is a for-profit corporation, actually owed this charity a little bit of money. And they didn't have any other liabilities. And they had credit card debt, but David Wilcock and the charity paid the credit card debt. So according to this 2023 tax form, they started the year with 0 liabilities. But they ended the year with over $15,000 worth of liabilities. Wow. And we're going to find out why when we get to Schedule O.
And John, one might ask themselves, why are people giving David Wilcock tax-free charitable donations to pay his credit card bills?
Here's the thing. Nobody's actually donated to this charity for several years. We're going to see that on the forthcoming pages.
Yeah, I think his income, the charity income, dropped significantly every year since he started it. The first year was the best year.
It had 3 good years, and then starting in 2022, it had $10 of charitable contributions, and then after that, it's had nothing. I don't know for certain, but I think we can speculate that that's the Beth effect. Apparently, most of the donors to this charity were her will donors, and obviously, when she divorced David, the will donors,
she left him for a cucumber. What are you going to do?
A cucumber or a yoni? Who knows?
So he had net assets or fund balances of $20,000 to start, and then he ended with six. It just looks like they're losing
No,
money.
he ended with -6. So it
Negative
went down
$6,000. So he
negative
spent
$6,000.
Somehow his charity that does no charity, to the best that I can find, somehow spent $26,189 in 1 year on what?
Well, we're gonna see exactly what they spent it on in Schedule O when we get to it. So
Okay.
we can scroll forward a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, let's get to the next part that's relevant.
So hold on, go back up. Go back
Okay.
up. Keep going. Okay, never mind. Scroll down a little bit. I think I may have missed the part where we should look at next. Scroll slowly.
Okay.
Most of this is not filled out, so we can just scroll past it.
Yeah, he doesn't fill out a lot of stuff.
Well, I mean, some of it is just a bunch of boxes. You check one box.
Yeah.
I okay.
Think that the next
go back.
Thing...
Stop right there. Go back down. Here. Right there. So here are the gifts, grants, and contributions here in line 1 in section A per year for the last several years. So these are the actual charitable gifts.
They took in $35,631 in free money in 2019. In 2020, they took in $20,183. In 2021, they took in $47,324. And somehow in 2022, they only took in $10. But that's still a total of $103,148. And I just want to stress that David Wilcock, basically, to the best of my knowledge and recollection, David Wilcock has spent $100,000 of this charity's funds on meals and entertainment, on equipment, even on his car maintenance and his cell phone bill, and things like web services to the tune of, I believe, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, email services, huge amounts of money for that.
Don't forget the training for the sloth bridges.
Yeah, he had to pay somebody to build sloth bridges to train for that.
But yeah, clearly we can see a trend with these numbers here of the Beth effect. When she left, the donations left.
Yeah, too bad for him. Yeah, so, and if we scroll down, we'll be able to see the expenses listed, right?
We will, but we're going to look at something else first before that.
All right. Just stop me.
Unless you scrolled past it. You may have already scrolled past it, but keep scrolling.
Well, what is it that you're looking for?
So there's a section of the tax form. So here's the Schedule O. Here's the real meat. But there's another section of the tax form where David lists how many hours per week he spends on the charity.
Oh yeah, he claims that he's working 40 hours a week.
See if we can find that part, because it's hilarious. He claims he spends 40 hours a week.
Oh, wait a minute. I can find it this way much easier.
Right, here we go.
So, list of officers, directors, trustees, and key employees. Okay, so David Wilcock is the president of the charity, and he claims that he's working on or for this charity for 40 hours every week. But
there's no way.
One might ask themselves, John, how do you have to work 40 hours a week for a charity that doesn't actually do any charitable thing except give some money to another charity? You just write a check and you're done for the year. You're not working 40 hours a week to forward a little bit of the money you're taking into another charity, right?
Well, remember, this is just willful information that Wilcock is putting in. He tells his tax accountant, put 40 hours for that, and then he just calls it a day. I don't think he can actually justify this number. He doesn't have like any kind of payroll or any kind of timesheets to justify this number. This is a joke. Now, David Wilcock, this is a joke.
This is a joke. If you're claiming you're working 40 hours a week, why isn't he like handing out sandwiches to homeless people for 40 hours a week? Or, picking up trash on the side of the highway would be a charitable thing to do.
And look at box C. David is claiming that he puts in an average of 40 hours a week and receives $0 for this.
Yeah.
It's just not believable.
Meanwhile, he's spending $5,000 one of these years on meals and entertainment. Right. Claiming he's not getting any money. And he's buying himself computers, software, cameras that he's then allegedly using for for-profit streams, which is highly illegal. To the best of my knowledge, you can't commingle things. Like, my wife is an accountant. If I ran a charity and I bought a webcam and microphones and software to stream for the charity, I couldn't use that same equipment to stream on my show here because this show is for profit. So he's got a huge problem, and maybe now would be a good time, John. I found the clip of the charity clip.
Yeah, I guess we could play that and just take a look.
Yeah, let's listen, friends. This is highly suspicious. And here's David Wilcock. He says on a public live stream, like a moron, this for-profit stream where I'm collecting super chats and getting ad revenue for my for-profit company is sponsored by my charity. That's highly illegal. Let's take a listen.
Thank you for watching. This video is sponsored by the Wilcock Foundation, which is our 501c3. We've done this through your grassroots support, and we now have the Wilcock Spiritual Healing Foundation, which also is a very important part of our work that allows me to do these videos and have them sponsored. This was sponsored by our foundation, the Wilcock Spiritual Healing Foundation, which financed much of the equipment that you're now seeing and that we're using. So this is a good way for us to use our nonprofit to give something back. I invested in this six-figure Hollywood quality production studio simply because I could, and it gives me a way to create high production value where I can literally just sit down and make a documentary film in one sitting, and then I'm done, a little bit of post-production. But I'm happy to be doing this. Sponsored by our foundation, the Wilcock Spiritual Healing Foundation, which financed much of the equipment that you're now seeing and that we're using.
And there's some music in it that you and I did. And
yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
And this is sponsored by our 501c3 corporation, which is called Wilcock Spiritual Healing and Empowerment. We had a lot of people asking for ways that they could donate without paying taxes, and we actually do have all of it done the right way. We're under the supervision of a CPA firm, and so everything is done totally by the book. And so one of the ways that we give back to you is by giving out free content. So this is a movie-length show that has multiple camera angles, and you're going to really love it.
And we do a lot to help to protect animals. We love sloths. We are going to be helping some of the burned koala bears from Australia, which is so sad. So many animals lost their lives there.
There's a billion animals, right?
Sadly, a billion animals lost their lives in the Australian fires. And there are still some wounded ones that are alive. And so we use that foundation to channel assistance to different organizations. And we're actually featuring those in the Ascension Mystery School. And we're doing like little short videos, so maybe we can also let other people know. But we're doing our best to be a part of the solution, which is to anchor in the sacred here on Earth, to make sure this Earth is a beautiful place and a peaceful place for now and for generations to come.
Well, let's also put this on the record while you're here. You and I both got some new briefings that are really heavy, and we're not going to say what they are, but for people who don't think this is real, what would you like to tell them?
Well, since David and I have been together closely for like the last 4.5 years, I've gotten to meet about 20 insiders, and some of those are people that are deep inside of the government. There are insiders that he never really even talks about. We'll just generally talk about, but they're not really known. And from some of the insiders that are in the deepest levels of really the warriorship on the planet, you would call that the Alliance.
And this is sponsored by our 501c3 corporation, which is called Wilcock Spiritual Healing and Empowerment. We had a lot of people asking for ways that they could donate without paying taxes, and we actually do have all of it done the right way. We're under the supervision of a CPA firm, and so everything is done totally by the book. And so one of the ways that we give back to you is by giving out free content. So this is a movie-length show that has multiple camera angles, and you're going to really love it. And we actually do have all of it done the right way. We're under the supervision of a CPA firm, and so everything is done totally by the book. Totally by the book, totally by the book, totally by the book, totally by the book, totally by the book.
If everything's done totally by the book, where's his 2020 990?
Yeah. Why didn't he ever file that one, right?
Yeah,
He's
that
missing
one.
some.
It's possible that he didn't get any contributions that year, so he didn't feel like he had to file it. But who knows, man?
Yeah, and you only have to file if you file every, like the way that it works is if you don't file these 990s for 3 consecutive years, then they scuttle your, they remove your charity
Yeah, I think
status.
that's what happened to Billy Carson's aerospace company.
That's
It didn't
exactly what
file its
happened.
forms, and it was
He
made
collected
a for-profit.
donations. He collected donations for his nonprofit organization for 3 full-on years. He never reported what happened to the money or how much he took in or what he did with it, and then they scuttled his charitable license. And the interesting thing, John, is I don't know. My wife's an accountant. No CPA would tell you it's okay to sponsor your for-profit company live streams. Notice how he says we're producing free content. No, you're not producing free content. If there's ads on YouTube and you're taking in money, that's not free content. He would have had to have it demonetized. And I've checked every one of the streams where we heard the clip of him saying, this is sponsored by the Wilcock Spiritual Healing Foundation, had ads on them, which means he was making money for his for-profit company while he was using cameras, software, microphones, and equipment, all purchased with the money from the charitable donations he was receiving. Sounds like a scam. This sounds like a scam.
It's completely suspicious and questionable.
Yeah.
And as far as like what his CPA is doing about it, I mean, David's paying them, I guess, if they don't ask too many questions.
Well, we can take a look at these 2023 explanations let's take a look at that.
So here's the Schedule O, which is where David lists their expenses and their assets and liabilities and an explanation of thereof. So it's
he's
actually
claiming he gave $24,500 to other charities. That's the charity work that he did. He gave almost 25K. But to who? And where's the canceled checks? Can we see those?
Well, here's the thing. No, the canceled checks are not part of these forms. Remember earlier, they started this tax year with only a little over $11,000 in cash. How did they make a $24,500 contribution when they only had $11,000 in cash, Stephen?
And they spent more than they made, than they had. Yeah.
At the bottom of this blue table, we get the explanation on how they were able to make this giant contribution when they only had $11,000 in cash.
And let's just say this is shady. So from Divine Cosmos, that's his for-profit company, beginning 0, due to Divine Cosmos, ending $15,751. So what does that mean exactly? Explain it to us.
In layman's terms, David has multiple corporate entities, right? He has this nonprofit, the Wilcock Spiritual Healing and Empowerment Foundation, so ridiculously named, but he also has his for-profit corporation, Divine Cosmos LLC. According to this entry, at the beginning of the year, and actually the line above it, Divine Cosmos owed money to this nonprofit. So the for-profit company at the beginning of this 2023 tax year owed money to the nonprofit. At the end of the year, it didn't owe any money to the nonprofit, and the tables have turned, and now the nonprofit owes money to Divine Cosmos. The TLDR, in layman's terms here, is Divine Cosmos has loaned his nonprofit a bunch of money.
Yeah.
That's what has happened.
And also, he could be saying that his for-profit company is giving the money, but he's not saying that. He's basically saying they're lending it to him, and then he has to pay it back to them.
Correct, exactly.
If he's giving money from his for-profit company to his nonprofit, he could be writing that $15 $9.99 off as a charitable contribution,
No,
not a
because it's
loan.
right. He could
It's a
do
loan.
that. So, and we don't know why he didn't do it as a contribution, why they did it as a loan, but we can speculate. The
Sounds shady
obvious,
to me. This
the
whole thing is
obvious,
shady.
it's shady. So the obvious explanation, right, is since Divine Cosmos has loaned money to the nonprofit, right, the nonprofit now has this liability. They have this $15,751 liability that's now weighing down their balance sheet to the point where they're now negative $6,000 in the hole. But
Great.
it shows up as a liability on the
Well,
nonprofit.
doesn't it seem
But
shady that he would put his charity into debt to give money to his for-profit company? Seems
no. His for-profit company gave money to the charity. That's what
okay.
happened.
Okay, but to pay the loan back, he's putting his charity $6,000 in arrears or into debt.
Well, it's negative $6,000 as far as assets. According to this form, it ended the 2023 tax year with little over $3,000 in cash. So it's still got $3,000 in cash in the bank, according to this form. But as far as Divine Cosmos is concerned,
And he also paid $534 in furniture.
no. These are assets. If you look at here, it says other
Oh, okay,
assets.
assets, yeah.
So it started the year, and this is another questionable thing, Stephen. It started the year, according to this filing, with $534 worth of furniture and fixtures. It ended the year with zero.
So
And the
did he
next line,
sell
well,
the
hold on.
furniture?
No.
What?
He did not sell it. We have the proof.
Okay.
If you look below, he also says machinery and equipment. He started the year with $400 worth of that, and it ended at zero. So that's $934 worth of stuff that just vaporized in the thin air. No, if you look at the top line, Stephen, the depreciation is $934. He is claiming on this form, and it's very suspicious, in my opinion. I'm not an accountant or lawyer, but it seems very suspicious that he had $934 of furniture, fixtures, machinery, and equipment that all magically depreciated to zero in 1 year.
Yeah. I mean, if you buy a chair, let's break this out a little bit so people can understand. Let's say I bought a couch for $1,000 and I run a charity, and it's the couch that people sit on when they come into the office or whatever. And I bought it for $1,000. The next year, it's not worth zero. It might be worth 700, or there's a little bit of a drop in value,
It'll
right?
take time. There's a depreciation schedule. It will take time. Eventually, in theory, it would
But
reach
he's
zero.
saying that his furniture and fixtures were worth 534, and machinery and equipment was worth
Right.
400 at the beginning of this fiscal year.
And now
for
it's
this charity.
zero.
Now it's worth zero.
So that's questionable. It's
And he
very
also
questionable.
lost money in intangible assets,
Here-
which usually is things
now-
like stocks, bonds.
No, intangible assets, those are things like intellectual property, copyrights, patents.
Oh,
Those are
okay.
intangible assets. What the hell IP does his charity actually have? And he's claiming it started the year worth $6,444 and it amortized, it became less valuable by $519.
$519.
And that's listed below depreciation.
Listen, I don't know. All I know, John, is I have a background in corporate accounting. My wife is accountant. I don't understand what he's doing here, except that this is shady as fuck. This is all really shady.
So there's two main theories of speculation that I have on this. And it all really stems from the fact that his Divine Cosmos lent over $15,000 to this nonprofit. My first line of speculation is that he needs assets on the books for Divine Cosmos. And so by loaning money to the nonprofit, that shows up as an asset for Divine Cosmos. It shows up as a liability here for the charity. And as we can see, it's way down their balance sheet. They owe $6,000, or they're negative $6,000 as far as assets. But it shows up as a liability, as an account receivable for Divine Cosmos.
Well,
So he made that loan to boost Divine Cosmos's books. That's my first line of speculation. My second line of speculation, and this is the one that I think is probably the case, David has said that he's been giving charitable contributions to a friend of his that I think has cancer and is dying or has already died.
Which is illegal.
Well,
you can't give if you run a charity, you can't give the charitable donations from your nonprofit if you run a charity, you can't give money from the charity to a friend or a relative. That's very clear. You're not supposed to do that. I don't know if it's
You
illegal, but it's
you might be right. I don't know if it's illegal either, but David has said his charity's giving the money. This form, Stephen, proves that that is a complete falsehood. The charity is merely an intermediary. Most of the money came from Divine Cosmos via this loan.
nice.
That's where most of the money came from. And we can prove that. It says it right here.
One thing I was confused about, and part of my conspiratorial nature, but since David Wilcock is blaming me for everything, it stands to reason that I have this line of reasoning. On all of the other charity forms, he listed what his expenses were on every other 990 for the year. In other words, he would say, we spent this much on this, we spent this much on this. On this form, he didn't give a breakdown of their expenses, really.
The Schedule O on this 2023 form is much shorter than the previous years. I guess we have to assume that he didn't spend thousands of dollars on email or on training
in
or
the
on
last
meals.
years, he spent thousands of dollars on meals and entertainment for himself, thousands of dollars on software and equipment, thousands of dollars on email providers, thousands of dollars.
Let's be honest, Stephen. Old David has fallen on hard times. Maybe he just can't afford those meals and entertainment anymore.
Well, if it's free charity money, why not? I'm going to start.
Well, his charity's hurting. It's only got a little over $3,000 in the bank, and it's negative 6,000 in assets.
They have collected more than $100,000. So that means he spent $100,000 somehow between.
Well, if you've already gone over the previous years, we saw what he spent the money on.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna clip this and put them all together into one video so people could see all the coverage of this shady charity since its inception. And there's also a famous appearance that he did on Edge of Wonder where he basically laid out his plans for his charity was to evade taxes, because he said on that appearance he did, I've come up with a way that you can give me money and not have to pay taxes. But what he really means is you could give me money and then I don't have to pay taxes on it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, correct. But if you make a charitable contribution to a 501c3 charity, it is tax deductible on your personal income.
Write-off. Yeah, you get a write-off.
But that Edge of Wonder video, was that on their YouTube channel? Because their YouTube channel's gone.
Yeah, but I have it somewhere. I'm going to put that. I'm going to clip that into. I think we're going to do like a master. We'll take all of our coverage of David Wilcock's shady charity. And by the way, thanks for your help with this, because I get busy and I didn't know that he finally filed this 2023 one. He's always years behind. It's
not only years behind, but as I mentioned earlier, if you look at the page form version of this on the IRS website, like if you enter in the employee ID number on the IRS website, you don't get the 2023 form. It's not on there yet. So, I mean, I keep hearing in the news,
slow IRS. We don't know.
Well, I've heard in the news that like Donald Trump is like slashing the IRS workforce by like half or something. Who knows? Who really knows? I mean, it's the IRS. I just
want to go back to this. So David Wilcock is claiming in this form. This is one of the what a freaking joke. Yeah, this is the what a freaking joke portion of this form. He's claiming that he's doing 40 hours of work a week for this charity that basically does nothing. Does it? According to this latest form, he gave $25,000 in charitable contributions to other charities from his charity. How long, John, does it take to write a check in a year?
Well, here's the thing.
It doesn't take 40 hours a week for 52 weeks in a year to write one check, and that's the only That's the only thing he did for his charity all year.
Right. They had charitable contributions of over $24,000. But according to this form, David is working an average of 40 hours a week for this charity. He's gotten paid $0, and the charity in the last 2 years has taken in 0 contributions. So what the hell is he actually doing other than, like you said, writing checks?
Yeah. I mean, he's not doing anything near that I could tell. And I also think that it's just shady to say, donate money to me so that I can take your money and give it to another charity. Why not just promote the charities that you want people to donate to unless you want to skim off the top of every dollar and then give a tiny portion of what you've taken in to other charities, you know.
As we speculated based on these forums, it seems like the charitable contributions were coming in at a pretty good clip until Beth left. And for some reason,
And I
David
covered
da-
his shady charity. I think that might have killed some of the donations,
perhaps
you
yes,
know.
but it's very interesting. David does not talk about his charity on his live streams at all. He like never mentions it anymore. It's all, oh, go to the disclosure.com and buy my
Buy my
product.
shit.
I
Yeah.
I need I need an income. I need to survive. I am still in a bankruptcy situation, all this stuff. Buy my videos on time traveling dinosaurs, but don't worry about my charity. Don't donate to my charity.
Suffer David Wilcock. Yeah, well, he can only milk the dents for so much money, and I guess he'd rather get it on the for-profit side. I don't know.
Yeah,
We
he's
want to thank
desperate. He needs it on the for-profit side, I
Michael,
think.
formerly in Seattle, said, I heard a rumor that Stephen is the notorious criminal known as the Gray Fox. That's totally 100% true. And Rotary Motion with two, Ashton Forbes will be the next David Wilcock. Yep. Yeah. They're both about as believable, all of these guys. So the charity stuff is interesting. I really do think I'm going to clip them, all of our coverage of the shady charity stuff together into one video so that people can see from the very beginning how much he took in and what he did with it. Anna Louisa with $2. No message, but thank you, Anna Louisa. And we have Review Tech Mongolia with 2. Wilcock tried to butt bang me and write it off. Oh no. And the Buddhas of Boston Sports sue his banged butt. Truth and discovery. Yeah, John, do you think it's stupid that he's threatening to sue me? Like, look how dangerous we are to his scams and his swindles and his shady business dealings just being regular citizens. He's going to give me subpoena power if he sues me. Like, I'm going to be able to
I don't
subpoena his emails, his records,
Steven,
to
I don't think
cancel
he's going to sue
checks.
you.
No, I don't either.
It's all threats. He's just trying to bully you to silence you. I don't think he's actually going to do it. I mean, do you remember right before he went on his Canadian vacation, he said he was going to write the lawsuit against you on his vacation, and he wound up
Yeah.
not doing that because he got like COVID or something. I mean, the guy's been saying, "I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you."
Since
Like the
July
guy,
of last year.
it's all bark,
Yeah.
bark, bark. He never actually bites.
Yeah.
He just
Well,
wants to silence you.
well, if he does sue me, I'm going to start Light Warrior Steven Fund, like Corey Good.
I don't think
I'm
he's
make
going to
the
sue you.
audience pay for my. Well, you know,
Steven,
I have speculated out some things, and here's what I've speculated, John. If he does it, I am going to go like to the best lawyers in the whatever jurisdiction, whatever it costs, and then I'm going to petition the court that we're allowed to film everything and broadcast it. Because after all, he's damaging my reputation with these false accusations, and I should be able to broadcast the results of we'll see what happens, you know.
I still don't think he's going to do it. Remember, Steven, even if he had a meritorious argument, even if he actually had a legitimate cause for action, in order to sue someone, you need this thing called money.
And you need proof too.
And if you watch David's last few live streams, like he's calling his sugar daddy for money now. Like he supposedly got a $20,000 small business loan, and then the next week he said he got an even larger line of credit, and then the week later he's saying he had to call his sugar daddy again. The guy is in serious money trouble.
Yeah.
And he even admits that. He says, "I can't sue him because I don't have the money." Well, that's obvious.
Yeah, well, I found out, I've been talking to a few lawyers about what to do about his false accusations, and I could stop him, but it would be very, very costly to stop him. It would, So I'm in a situation, John, where like I can take my kids to Disneyland next year, or I can make David Wilcock stop making these false accusations about me. I can't do both. So,
well, you can
what do you think?
compromise. You can compromise and take him to Sesame Place instead.
Sesame Place is right near my house. We have
I
season
know, right?
passes. They're not interested in Sesame. Now they want the Disney trip because they go to Sesame every other week in the summer. Like they have water rides and, all that stuff. We have season passes. We get them every year because we're like 20 minutes from Sesame Place. So now they want the Disney vacation stuff. So, obviously I'm going to choose my family. It's very concerning though, because A lot of people have pointed this out, John. I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about one of his unhinged followers believing that I'm this evil villain and deciding to take action to stop me from ending, from stopping ascension or something.
Well, that brings up a good point. I think we have to start talking about David Wilcock and his Sunday live streams as in fact being a cult. If you look at the characteristics of cults and you like make like a checklist of what those
Oh yeah.
characteristics
You
are,
can't question the
David
leader.
David Wilcock in his live streams,
Information
yeah,
control. It's
he
all
checks
of those
all the
things.
boxes. He checks all the boxes.
Fair
I looked
game.
earlier.
Yeah, fair game.
Yeah,
That's what he's doing to me right now. Fair game. Anything goes. You call him a Satan worshiper, a child predator. You sue him. You make him. That's Scientology tactics 101. It's cult like tactics.
so
With Utah
unfortunately,
Mongolia, if he sues you, raw dog butt bang him with lawyers. Yeah. Thank you,
I mean,
Revita.
unfortunately, with cults, you're going to get a small minority of the followers that are diehard, and they'll do things like stalk the enemy. I mean, we saw that with other people like Corey Good.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Corey Good had whole groups of people that just spend all day and night in Facebook groups making memes to attack people and call them
yeah.
Satan worshipers and all this other stuff. I would love to speak to two of those people because but I have kind of they've left Corey's cult. But it's been a few years. Like I'd love to talk to them and say, like, why don't you talk about what you did for dear cult leader now to make amends? Because you were wrong now. The guy obviously wasn't a secret space guy. He was a con artist, and you got conned. But people feel stupid. They don't want to admit that there's a lot of shame involved with getting conned by a cult. So, yeah. So what's going on the Stavatti front? There's some news.
Well,
there.
let me just start from the beginning with some of the updates that I have.
Okay.
So as
yeah,
as I've
I'm here
mentioned
for it.
previously, David Wilcock has been showing these moose feeding videos on his Sunday live streams, and he's, constantly showing him throwing multiple apples to multiple moose. Back in November,
Which is illegal.
several people made criminal referrals to Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
And it wasn't me, David Wilcock.
And it wasn't me
do
either.
It.
I didn't do it either.
Yeah,
it was not me. But when I heard that several people had made criminal referrals, more than one, I filed a Colorado Criminal Justice Records Act request, which is basically like a FOIA request for
like a right
criminal
to know FOIA request
in Colorado. And they told me that the investigation was ongoing, and while it's ongoing, they can't give me the records, and I don't want them while they're ongoing anyway. I want the finished product. As of last week, it's still ongoing. And at this point, I've been asking for updates consistently enough that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has now put me directly in touch with the officer who is investigating David Wilcock. So I'm now in direct email conversation with this person.
This is great because David Wilcock is accusing me of, he said he was going to get me arrested. I'm doing all kinds of criminal activity, terrorism, cyber stalking, extortion, stealing money out of his bank account. He said the Colorado sheriff was cooperating with the Philadelphia police to get me arrested, and none of that is true. And yet David Wilcock, we can verifiably say, is under criminal investigation by Parks and Wildlife.
I mean, the officer told me in writing, so it's happening.
Okay, so now, David Wilcock, you are under criminal investigation, not me, dude. Yeah, now, even though it's for something stupid though, like fucking feeding a moose.
I personally do feel it's silly. I didn't make the criminal referral. It is worth mentioning that he's feeding a moose, and a moose can kill a human being.
Absolutely.
So what he's doing is actually risky. And you know what's stupid, Stephen? Before he shows the video, he actually tells his audience, "Oh, a moose is a dangerous animal. Don't try this at home." And then he shows a video of him doing it at home.
Yeah, like but he's not like walking up to it. He's like hurling apples at it from a good distance, right outside his house or something.
Well, and the moose actually runs from him, which I think is kind of funny. But
Buffalo Spunks is here and says, "That's really me."
Carnivorous vegan.
One of his followers has already accused you and us of killing millions of people for calling out Stavatti as a scam. They are not well. I agree, Buffalo Spunks.
Yeah, she's talking about Carnivorous Vegan, the the woman with crazy eyes.
Yes,
Who said
yes.
you're responsible for 1 million deaths, Stephen.
And I'm stopping Ascension single-handedly. Review Tech Mongolia. Wait, he is sexually harassing wild moose now?
No,
Well,
we don't have
I don't
any
know
proof
about
that
that.
that's
We
happening.
don't have any proof that he's trying to butt bang moose, but Tales of the Sonic Voyage with 5. I heard you applied for that Stavatti job posting. I think your chances are great. I think
We'll
John's
get
got
to
some
that
info
later.
on
Let me
that.
finish the moose stuff.
Yes,
So
moose.
anyway, I'm in direct contact with the officer. The officer has informed me it is still ongoing. And they've also informed me that, they have 18 months from the initial reporting of the crime to actually do the investigation. He has implied to me that it may take up to 18 months, which is kind of crazy because the videos of him doing it on YouTube are like right there. And he shows the same video multiple times, feeding multiple apples to multiple moose.
Yeah,
So
why does it take 18 months? That doesn't
so
make
I
any
have
sense.
I have two theories on why that might be happening. My first theory is that this officer in Colorado Parks and Wildlife, they know that, I requested this information pretty early, like a few days after the referrals were made. Maybe they know that it's going to be made public after the fact, and so
So they have to be very careful,
they're
yes.
just running out the clock. That's my first line of thinking. My second line of thinking, and this is backed up by history, and this is what I think is probably happening, is they're taking a long time, Stephen, because if you look at previous cases in Colorado where people film themselves feeding animals, each time they gave the animal a piece of food, that was one citation, right?
So
So
there
that
could
one,
be 10 counts.
that one lady who fed multiple pieces of bread to that deer and then she put it on YouTube. And by the way, she lives in Evergreen, which is only maybe like 30, 40 minutes from David Wilcock. Each piece of bread was a $100 fine. So she fed the deer a piece of bread that was a $100 fine. She fed it another piece of bread that was another $100 fine. She let it eat from a charcuterie board in her living room. That was also a $100 fine. They could be stacking violations against Wilcock because then it's worth their time. He feeds multiple apples to multiple moose. They may whack him with hundreds of dollars worth of citations. That way it's worth their time because just one incident, all this time for one incident for one $100 citation doesn't make much sense. So I think that they're building a case.
Yeah, it does seem a little petty. Jupiter's Madness seems a little petty, but I'm here for it.
It's
He
petty,
deserves it.
and I didn't do it. But David is very stupid to have put this
On a public YouTube.
on a
Yeah.
public YouTube. Like feeding animals feeding what big game is legal in Colorado, but like almost everybody does it. Like everyone feeds, a deer an
Yeah, you
apple
just
in their
don't
backyard
film
or whatever.
yourself and
Exactly.
put the evidence of it
The
on
more-
YouTube like a
the more-
moron.
The moral of the story is if you're going to commit a crime, if you're going to break the speed limit, don't video record it. And if you do video record it, don't put it on the public internet. That's the real moral of the story here.
I'm with you. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. All right.
So I guess we should move on to Stavatti.
Yeah, we've covered Moosegate. What's going on with Stavatti?
Oh man.
Listen, David Wilcock says that and by the way, just in full disclosure, pardon the pun, I was in contact with the lawyer today that is suing Stavatti Aerospace on behalf of this Dimitrov, but I did not hear back from him. Because David Wilcock is saying the only reason Dimitrov sued them is because of things that I said.
Well, we have proof in the transcripts of Dimitrov's deposition, which I guess we can look at tonight. That's now public on the docket. Dimitrov clearly says it was Reddit posts and another Stavatti investor who made him doubt Stavatti
and I've never posted on Reddit in my life.
Yeah, and I wasn't posting on Reddit during those years either. These Reddit posts that they're talking about, these are from like the late 2020s to they're from like the late 2010s to the early 2020s. So they're from like 2018, 2019, 2020, that time frame. And I wasn't posting on Reddit, and I didn't even know about Stavatti back then. If you had asked me about Stavatti back then, I'd be like, what the F is Stavatti?
I mean, the first time I was aware of him was the first time David mentioned him on his show, I guess. So that would be around 2018, but cards on the table.
I don't think it was 2018. The first time he mentioned Stavatti, or he talks about Stavatti. Well, that 2021 is when he first mentioned Stavatti by name. And actually in 2021, he refers to Chris Beskar as codename Ben and all that crap. But in 2020, he started dropping hints in some of his live streams that he's working with an operation that's developing anti-gravity technology, but he can't talk about it.
Okay.
It's in my book, and I sourced the videos.
Okay.
So it actually goes back to 2020. He started
Well, my
dropping
point
the
is, it's like there's no way that Dimitrov heard they were a scam from me, because he sued them
No,
previous.
we don't have any indication that Dimitrov even knows of you or me.
Well, they might.
We don't have any
after I talk to
indication
his
of that.
lawyer. They might after I talk to his lawyer.
I mean,
But that's like today. Today is the first time I reached out to his lawyer.
Yeah, possibly. We don't know. But
Okay.
I guess we should talk about Stavatti. Do you want to bring up the docket on recap, or do you want me to send you the link?
Send me the link for it. Yes,
okay. Please. I'll try not to make my clicky keyboard make too much noise.
Those audio files will get you every time. Audio experts.
All right, so I just sent you the link in EV Mux in the private chat.
Okay. All right. Let me get to that, and we'll begin on the coverage of the. Oh, 1 second. All right. You sent me 2 links?
No, well, the first one was the tax. Look at the second link. Click on the second link.
Okay.
That's the Dimitrov case.
Okay. And let me share my screen so that we get that up, and we'll talk about the latest updates, because David Wilcock says that this is all getting settled.
No, David Wilcock, that's a falsehood. Right? Yeah, David Wilcock said, "Oh,
David Wilcock lied to his audience? Are you kidding me, John?
Yeah,
no way. He lied
David
to
Wilcock,
his audience again?
He said something along the lines of, "Oh, we talked to Dimitrov. It's all a misunderstanding. He's with us now, and we're settling." Yeah, that's bullshit. But yeah, these public filings, it's bullshit. So these are all the latest public filings. Let's go down to the one. Scroll down a little bit more. Scroll down to line 60. I'm sorry, not line 60. Scroll up to 61. Okay. So docket entry 61. Right. 61. So the latest updates for the most part this year, back on February 19th, Stavatti put in a motion to dismiss the Dimitrov lawsuit.
Okay.
And I posted about this on X, and the basis for Stavatti trying to get this dismissed is they deposed Dimitrov, and they now claim that they think he's a money launderer. They think he came, and they say this in their filing, they think that he came to the court with unclean hands. So they're trying to get it dismissed. They don't think he has standing because he's a money launderer.
Okay, but if somebody's a money launderer and they invest $1 million in your company, does that mean you just get to keep their money because he's a money launderer? Like, I don't understand this line of reasoning, John.
Well, it's a Hail Mary trying to make this argument that he doesn't have standing, and they're trying to make the argument that he's a money launderer based on his transcript. If you actually look at what he says in the transcript, it's questionable, but it doesn't show that he's a money launderer.
But the claim has been made.
But the claim, they have made the filing to dismiss based on that. And they included transcripts and some of these attachments. And I think we've actually gone over these.
We've already gone over those previously, yeah.
So Stavatti makes this motion to dismiss the case. If you look at line 62, which actually happened several weeks later, they actually withdraw this document. And the reason they withdraw it, and they say so in the filing, is they realize that they screwed up, or their lawyer realizes he screwed up. And so they withdraw the motion to dismiss the case and replace it with a motion for summary judgment, basically asking for the same thing, for the case to be dismissed on the same, not line 63, line 62. That's where they withdraw it. So, and docket entry 62. So they say, our bad, we did the wrong type of filing, the wrong style. Here's the correct one, but we're saying the same thing. That's what they're doing. I find this very curious, Stephen. This lawyer is not an idiot. Remember, back in 2023, Stavatti was in default for 6 months, and this lawyer made a very shrewd and nuanced legal argument to get the default set aside, and the judge bought it and set aside the default. The lawyer won a pretty major victory. So this lawyer who is smart enough to make that shrewd and nuanced legal argument doesn't know how to make basic filings in a civil case. I have to say, I think that this incident where they submitted the wrong one, then withdrew it and put another one in, I think these are dirty lawyer games. I think that Stavatti's lawyer is delaying because that's really all they can do.
Yeah, that's their only tactic that they
I
have
mean,
because
I
they
mean,
owe the guy. What do they owe him? $5 million or $6 million back?
they owe him the $1 million principal plus $5 million in profit, so in total $6 million.
Wow. And so, and by the way, I just want to put on the record that when David Wilcock is making his live streams, telling everybody, "Oh, Steven says Stavatti's a scam, not a real company," I I I drew that conclusion based on the court documents in which one of their investors said that they were a scam and a Ponzi scheme, and then they essentially admitted that they're a Ponzi scheme by saying, "Well, we're going to pay this guy back who's suing us, but we're waiting for new investment money to
Right, and
pay
they
back
don't
the old
and
investor." That's a
and they
Ponzi scheme.
and they don't deny it. And we have two bona fide written correspondences from Stavatti folks, one from Brian Colvin or Rudy Chacon, I forget which one, and we have Chris Beskar's demand letter response, which we've also gone over on this show. And in both of those written documents, both Beskar and Colvin state that they were trying to repay Dimitrov with other investors' money. So Stavatti, in two instances, has said that in writing to Dimitrov.
Yeah, pretty genius move to, like, if people are calling you a scam and a Ponzi scheme, it's pretty much a genius move to admit to being a Ponzi scheme
Well,
in written documents.
and we may look in this. This is in one of the attachments earlier, but we now in these filings above here, we now have further attachments which include emails from Brian Colvin. And I'm not kidding you, Stephen. Brian Colvin in 2022 was emailing Dimitrov and begging him not to make this a legal issue, like putting it in all capitals. Do not go to a lawyer. Don't do that. It's in the emails. We may
Oh,
eventually look
we've
at that.
covered that already. Yeah, I
No, we
remember.
have no, we
Oh, we
haven't.
haven't. Okay.
We in the initial complaint, Dimitrov and his attorney say that there are emails, but we didn't actually see the verbatim actual emails. They're now on the docket above here in attachments. We may look at that later, we may not. It's it's interesting though. He's basically begging Dimitrov, "Oh, please don't sue us." So anyway, in docket entry 62, they withdraw, and again on the same day on March 5th, docket entry 63, they replace it with a motion for summary judgment, basically asking for the case to be dismissed, basically asking for the same thing in a different style motion. Now, under the rules of the court, under the federal rules of civil procedure, Dimitrov then had 30 days, 30 calendar days to respond to this motion for summary judgment. The next docket entry, Stephen, that we notice is docket entry 64. Don't click on it just yet. Docket entry 64, which was filed one day before Dimitrov's response was due. And this is a joinder from Brian Colvin. And you can click on it and look at it if you want, but I'll give you the TLDR. Brian Colvin is basically saying in this joinder, one day before Dimitrov's response was due, Brian Colvin is basically saying that he doesn't disagree with Stavatti's motion for summary judgment, but Brian Colvin denies all the bad shit that Stavatti accuses him of.
Nice.
So that was one day before it was due.
And for those
Then-
unaware, in case you're not familiar, the issue is that this Brian Colvin is the one who solicited the money and got the money from the person that's suing Stavatti. And Stavatti's CEO is basically saying that Brian Colvin misrepresented himself and forged Beskar's signature
Correct, yeah.
on this agreement to give back $6 million after taking in the $1 million. But interestingly, even though Beskar claims the money was obtained fraudulently without his knowledge, he still spent the money.
Right, and we'll see in one of these dockets up here, Dimitrov's lawyers, when they finally make their response, they say exactly that. And they ask Beskar in the deposition, did you deposit the money? And Beskar says yes. And they ask Beskar, did you file any kind of complaint with your bank? Or did you tell your bank that this was illegitimate? And Beskar says no. So anyway, this is April 4th, the day before Dimitrov's response was due. Brian Colvin files this joinder. we now we notice that the next entry is Dimitrov's response to the motion for summary judgment, and that was on April 9th. So as David said on his live stream, it was technically 4 days overdue. I've looked into this and talked to some folks, and it's my opinion that the judge is not going to find it overdue because this joinder that came in right before it was
Yeah,
due
that's going to require some additional research,
is
right?
exactly, and the judge is likely to find that. So sorry, David Wilcock, I don't think you're going to get your way. It's going to be another provably false statement about this case among several that you previously given, David. And let's not forget, folks, in 2023 and most of 2024, David Wilcock didn't acknowledge the existence of this case at all. At all.
Yeah,
He
you're right.
never
You're
talked
right.
about it in his live streams. He didn't start talking about it until later on in 2024.
After you and I covered it here, then he started talking about it.
I mean, we can imply we don't really know why technically why David started talking about it. We think it's you and I, but you know, for all we know, Beskar is telling David what to say, and Beskar didn't tell David to start talking about it until recently. For all we know.
Yeah,
But
and there
anyway,
was something interesting in the Beskar deposition in that David Wilcock is constantly claiming that he's taking the money from his show and investing it in the Stavatti. But the reality is he's giving the money to Christopher Beskar personally.
you're right, and I sent you a clip of that attachment. So we now have in this docket entry 25, we now have Chris Beskar's transcript or partial transcript of his deposition. Dimitrov's attorneys did depose Chris Beskar, and we have some of his responses, and some of it's very interesting to say the least. And one of the more interesting things, as you just mentioned, is that Chris Beskar is getting personal income. Personal income. In other words, it's not going to Stavatti for hover cars or free energy or any of that nonsense. It's going to
right
Chris.
in his pocket. Yeah.
It's going right in his pocket as personal income for his household.
Yeah, and I've speculated that David Wilcock is paying him to basically lie, allegedly, about, you know, David Wilcock has made all of these claims, like Christopher Beskar worked on top secret projects for the government, and he built secret space programs, spaceships, and all this stuff.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show or not. This might be a Truth Seekers exclusive. But Stephen, one of my sources told me on the telephone that Chris Beskar told him that he worked with aliens at Area 51.
Great.
And that's verbatim what he told me.
Nice. Nice. So he's a space cadet just like David Wilcock.
I wonder if Chris Beskar was like working with Bob Lazar or whatever, right? Because didn't Bob Lazar claim he was working at Area 51?
Yeah, the convicted pimp. Yeah, sure.
So anyway, so Dimitrov and his attorneys make this response to the motion. It's 4 days late. They include partial transcripts of Chris Beskar's deposition, and as I said, you know, this is public. I uploaded all these PDFs, so I uploaded all these blue buttons. That's all my work. Anyone can come here for free. Look at the PDFs. Chris Beskar's deposition is in plain English, and Chris Beskar admits that he deposited Dimitrov's money, didn't complain to his bank, etc. So the latest filing on April 24th, so 5 days ago. This is David Wilcock basically foreshadowed this, right? So this is not Dimitrov. This is Stavatti's attorneys trying to strike the response that Dimitrov's attorneys made here on the 9th. And they're making the argument that because it's late, it should be stricken. And as I previously mentioned, I don't think it's going to be stricken. I think the judge is going to say, nah, the joinder came in late. I'll grant them leave after the fact for a few days to make the response. It was fairly timely.
It's really up to the judge, yeah.
And I think the judge, I wouldn't be surprised if the judge rebukes Stavatti for trying to push for sanctions here. I would not surprise me if the judge says, get GTFO.
But this is what Wilcock is basing, that the case is going to get dismissed because the other party was a few days late with a filing.
Right. And then because they were late with the filing, the judge will go by Stavatti's motion for summary judgment, and David Wilcock is implying that the judge will buy the argument that Dimitrov doesn't have standing to sue because he's allegedly a money launderer. And I think that will also fail. And when the motion to strike and the motion for summary judgment fail, Stavatti's Hail Marys will be incomplete. And if their Hail Marys here are incomplete,
They
I
got
don't
nothing
see
left. Yeah, they got
I don't
nothing
see
left.
there. I think all the chambers in their gun will be empty, and then I think maybe we'll be in the end game of this lawsuit. But who's to say? I mean,
How
this
long has
thing
this lawsuit been going?
since February 2023, so it's been 2 years and almost 3 months.
Yeah, this is why it's kind of funny when David Wilcock claims he's going to sue me or anybody else. It's like, all right, good, go dedicate years of your life into trying to get me illegal.
But
Like,
as anyone can see here, every single filing, every single document on the docket is available in the public domain for free. Anyone
yeah,
can come here and look at the PDFs.
thanks to
So,
John. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And so, all of this misinformation that David is giving people, I just shake my head like, Wilcock, you can come here and look at the filings and read it for yourself. It's in plain English.
yeah. And the funny thing with lawsuits is we're 2+ years into this. Look at all this legal wrangling, and they still neither party has seen the inside of a courtroom yet. It's all
Well,
pre-trial.
remember the policy of basically all federal courts with civil cases is to deal with these things in the pretrial phase and not go to court, because court costs even more time and money.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
the policy is to avoid trial, actually going to trial. And there have been settlement conferences between the parties. There were settlement conferences back, I think, in January of 2024, and no settlement could be reached. And how could a settlement be reached when Stavatti doesn't have any money? Honestly,
Yeah.
if Stavatti offered this guy his $1,000,000 back, that'd probably settle it, and he'd
Yeah.
probably just be
He
like,
just
"Oh,
get his
I got my
initial
money
investment
back.
Yeah.
I got my money back, and I learned a lesson." But Stavatti doesn't have $1,000,000 for the guy. So
And they never will, unless Wilcox suddenly comes up with $1,000,000 to bail them out.
Well, David Wilcock doesn't have $1,000,000 either. David Wilcock had to get a $20,000 loan, and David Wilcock this past week said he had to call his sugar daddy again. So David
Wonder what
doesn't
he
have
has
a
to
million.
do. Think he's
He
got to
doesn't have
bend
a,
over for that sugar daddy? Like, why is somebody giving him tens of thousands of dollars?
well, according to the Hidden in Plain Sight podcast, they're sending him Polaroids, or he's sending this sugar daddy Polaroids.
Oh, gross. Absolutely gross. Just absolutely gross. Well, yeah. So, is there any other breaking stuff about Stavatti that you're aware of, or?
So I did post on X, as you're aware, that Stavatti put a job posting on Indeed.
Yeah, I'll pull that up. You two can work for a company that's never made anything.
But if it's funny because if you look at this job posting, first of all, we're only in April 2025, and the job posting says that Stavatti's hiring for 2026. If they
Yeah.
even make it that far.
And you say after almost 31 years in existence, Stavatti has advertised an open position for their first employee on Indeed. The caveat is that it's for 2026. Odd considering it's only April 2025. My first impression is that since Stavatti has no payroll and is very short on funds, this job advertisement is merely to give the impression that they have serious plans. Stavatti doesn't have any real human resources or personnel department. The job is advertised at their Niagara Falls facility, a facility which the Stavatti source told me on the telephone is nowhere near ready for aircraft production. And here we see that.
And
Yeah.
this is just a partial screenshot of the posting on Indeed. Anyone can go look at it. It's public on Indeed. This job posting is strange. It's not for like one type of engineer, Steven. It's basically for like the whole basket of any type of employee they think they might need. So like machine specialists and C-suite executives like CTOs and CFOs and aerodynamicists. They're asking, it's like a catch-all for like any kind of employee they think that they
So
might
they
be
can show
interested.
investors, like, see, we're hiring.
Yeah. You're right. And it's just one posting for all of those different types of things. And as I mentioned here on my X post, how is Stavatti going to vet any of these people? They don't have anyone with HR experience to my knowledge, and they don't have an HR department. So you could apply for this job and just make up like a false identity with like a false CV and a false background and just say, "Hey, I'm an aerodynamic engineer. Hire me." And I guess you would call and talk to Beskar. And what's Beskar to do? He can't vet you. So, HR departments, they have resources and assets that they use to like vet people, like do background checks and vet people's
Sure. Yeah.
educational history and stuff. Stavatti doesn't have that. So what are they going to do? You could tell them, be like, oh, I have a PhD from Yale in aerodynamics, and
I'm
I
an
spent time,
anti-gravity
yeah,
engineer, John.
and I spent
Yeah.
time at Area 51 developing spaceships. And Beskar's going to be like, okay, I trust you, bro.
This is just so stupid. Just so
Yeah.
stupid.
But this is
And
their first job posting that I've seen from them in 31 years.
31 years. Oh, they're finally hiring somebody. But not till next year when they
They
get when
they
the money
appear to
comes
be,
in.
yeah,
They
they
need to
appear
wait
to
for the
be
money to
hiring
come
someone.
in, John. They need to
And
wait for the money to come
we
in.
don't even know if they're going to make it to 2026. So you might
You
apply
think,
for a
yeah,
job
that's
with
what I
this
was going to
company.
ask you next. Do you think that this shady aerospace company is going to go bankrupt, especially if they lose that Dmitriev lawsuit? Because they're going to
I
have
mean,
$1 million loan. Couldn't he get a lien against that property that they own if he wins the judgment?
well, Stephen,
There's already liens against
I
him.
don't I don't think he could get a lien because we've talked about this, you and I, on previous shows. Dimitrov's loan, his promissory note, that's an unsecured loan. It's unsecured. It's not secured with property. The contractors in New York, and the accounting company and the guy who has the mortgage on Stavatti's property, those are secured loans. They're actually secured by that real property via either a mortgage or a lien. So
Wow.
those are secured loans. And as you know, and you can ask your wife, she'd probably tell you the same thing. Secured in bankruptcy, secure loans, they have seniority over unsecured loans. They have priority, and they're going to get paid off first. So because Dimitrov's loan is an unsecured loan, I think that even if Dimitrov wins and gets the judgment for the full amount, I think he's going to be last in line. And let's not forget, and we've talked about this on the show previously as well, that property, it's probably worth somewhere south of $1 million.
Probably more like
It
half a million. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be able to pay off the secured loans that are on it, or the secured interest that's on it, much less $6 million for Dimitrov, for an unsecured loan.
Yeah, Mr.
So,
Protrucker says, what happened to India, David? The contract in the billions. Remember that, David?
well, let's not forget Dr. Timothy's signed a revocable deal for $500 million that back in August, Chris Beskar flew out to David's house and waved in front of David's face, and David claimed he was shown undeniable,
Yeah.
irrevocable proof of a $500 million irrevocable deal that somehow has been revoked.
And let's unpack this a little bit. So we know by various public statements from David Wilcock and Stavatti as well, I think, that David Wilcock claims he gave $1.5 million or something like that to this company.
I've calculated at about 1.4 to 1.5 million dollars
Okay.
conservatively. It wouldn't surprise me if it was more than that.
So what do we think is happening here, John? Because and I freely admit this is my speculation, but I think you've seen the clip Macario did, and by the way, thanks so much to Macario for doing these clips. But this constant David Wilcock saying the money's coming, the money's coming, the money's coming, the money's coming. I believe that they took David Wilcock's money just like Dmitriev. They spent it all, and they have no way to pay back David Wilcock his money. So they keep stringing him along, saying that there's all these big deals. We're going to get you your money back. By the way, can we get 10 grand for our insurance payment that's due? And we'll just add it in or whatever. I think they're still trying to milk him for money. He's wanting to get his $1.5 million back, and he seems totally convinced he's going to get his 1.5 million or whatever he invested with profit on top of it. He's going to get more than he invested back. And my speculation is that they're lying to him and continually stringing him along, claiming that they're going to get all these funds or loans and they'll be able to pay him back. What do you think is happening here?
That's my speculation too. But I mean, as far as for my research and writing a book, I can't. I have to kind of put speculation aside. I mean, we could talk about speculation, but it's better that we have things that are provable.
Yeah, I agree.
When Stavatti got their default set aside, they then responded to Dimitrov's initial complaint. And in that response, Stavatti's attorney and Chris Beskar clearly state that no one at Stavatti is getting paid. they have no payroll and no employees, and that
No
Chris
income
Beskar and that
or
Chris
little
Beskar is
income.
and no official income and no products. And Stavatti has and Chris Beskar has told people that he may give them employment contracts once Stavatti gets some kind of business and it's viable to do so. He may give them employment contracts. So when David says, "Oh, an investment's coming in and I'm going to get a giant payday and I'll never have to worry about money again." Those are basically his exact words. David is assuming that he's going to get some kind of piece of paper from Beskar saying, "Here's a bunch of money, David," whether it's in the form of a bonus or some kind of investor payout or, a giant lump sum salary. David Wilcock claims he's owed all this. He actually said this in a previous live stream. He claims that he's owed salary for all his work on the board, which apparently is being their stenographer or
Well,
whatever.
how does he have time to work on a board of an aerospace company? He's working full time for his charity, John.
Well, allegedly their board meetings are once a week, and
And he's their stenographer. Yeah, they can't afford a
yeah,
stenographer.
and
They
I
haven't
go
heard of
into
recording devices. He has to write down everything everybody says somehow.
yeah, and he complains about it.
Very high tech company. RP is here with 5 and says, I built model rockets that I buy from Hobby Lobby. I have a bronze Nartec certification. I demand to be in charge of their space program. He's going to be in charge of, well, you couldn't do worse than whoever they have taking care of that now, you know? Just ridiculous. And, we're already in an hour and a half in, so I don't think I'm
I
going to get
mean,
to the clips tonight. I think we're going to
I
just
mean,
cover this tonight. Yeah.
there's more Stavatti updates that we can talk about, right? I mean, if we
Yeah,
go,
let's go into let's do
I don't think
that.
we had a did we have a chance to talk about the sizzle reel? I mean, you covered this in a previous show, but I made a whole Substack post on this, going line by line chronologically through that video about the things that are said that are
Well,
ridiculous or provably
can you
false.
give us the Cliff Notes version of them, or yeah,
I
we could get into that.
I mean, yeah, let me take a quick look here at
So,
the
for those
Substack
unaware,
post.
David Wilcock released a sizzle reel of a very high tech looking airplane, but it looks like graphics from 1998. It looked like they did the graphics for this thing, this video that they made about one of their airplanes. It looks like they made it on Windows 98, or
Yeah, and so when we're talking about at the beginning of the sizzle reel, they're talking about their SM-39, right? Which is like the crazy looking airplane that has the strakes.
Sure.
At the very beginning of this video, like the 2.5 mark, Chris Beskar starts talking about how they want to participate in the next generation air dominance fighter program, the NGAD program. Of course, Donald Trump just recently awarded that to Boeing,
Yeah.
and
A little bit of a problem there then.
I have talked to sources that have said that Stavatti is in no way a participant in the NGAD program because Stavatti doesn't have the money, the trust, or the security clearances. So they can't participate in it. So they've been locked out. They're not a serious participant in that program.
They're
Yet,
pretending that they could be chosen.
Through this sizzle reel, they constantly imply that they are. They're not. We can go over some other things. They talk about these advanced materials IP, this intellectual property for advanced materials. I talked to one of the guys who supposedly owns the advanced materials that used to be with Stavatti, and he said he's no longer with Stavatti, and Chris
So they
Beskar
lost that.
they no longer have access to this IP. And I asked the guy, I said, well, how would he get access to advanced materials IP without you and your IP? And I was told he'll have to go somewhere else and he won't be able to get it anyway. So
all that stuff that Wilcock was talking about, like advanced skinning and materials, that's all pie in the sky hopium
pie
nonsense.
in the sky, exactly.
Imagine that. David Wilcock lied to his audience again. Do you think that he's lying, or do you think that he's just repeating shit that Beskar tells him without checking on it? I think he's just repeating Beskar's talking points.
I think it's a combination of him parroting Beskar and David also giving like his own interpretation on things.
Yeah, and exaggerations.
And it's clear that David, when he gives his own interpretation, and I'm about to mention that here, it's pretty bogus. At the 435 mark of that sizzle reel, David like holds up a giant model of the SM-39, and David and Beskar get into like a brief argument where David thinks that like the strakes were called bulkheads, and Chris Bessar corrects him and says, no, they're strakes. Like, it's just, David doesn't even know his own aircraft. Remember, he's the director of advanced technology for this company. He's not, you know, the public relations spokesperson, although that's basically the role that he fills. He's director of advanced technology, and he doesn't know basic stuff.
You're right about that. Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna play this sizzle reel while we're.
You should
I'm
really
gonna
go to
do
my
it.
Substack post, because I have like brief clips of the reel and then we talk about it. But
Do you have that? Can you send me the link to that one? I'm sorry.
I can, yes, I'll send it to you
Yeah,
in
I'm a
the
terrible show
private chat
host.
here.
Terrible show host. And in the meantime, Troll says, does Stavatti actually own any old MI?
Oh, you're gonna have to go
MI-20
trolly troll
MiG-29s?
troll. You troll. You got to go look at our previous episode where we spent like at least a half hour talking about the MiG-29s
Yeah, it's
and
never
how it's
gonna
bogus.
happen. Never gonna
Stavatti does
happen.
not own. And here's the TLDR from that episode: Stavatti doesn't own any MiG-29s. There are MiG-29s available for Stavatti to purchase for any kind of retrofit. All of the airworthy MiG-29s in the United States of America are owned by billionaire Jared Isaacman, who, if some of the audience may have heard of this name, he's been in the news because Donald Trump is floating Jared Isaacman as like the next head of NASA. So he's been in the news. He's got all the airworthy MiG-29s, and as we talked about in the previous episode, he's not just a billionaire with his toys. Jared Isaacman is actually licensed to fly the MiG-29.
Well, that's interesting. And
So
here you have one of these clips. We'll cite fair use.
Yeah.
Twin engine design, some of them single engine.
Could I just stop for a second? So
he interrupts
just to slow
him,
it down,
like
the next generation air dominance. So what does the next
Twin
engine design,
air
some of the-
dominance. Yeah, let me interrupt you and tell me about next generation air dominance. And here's another clip.
Certainly. The nature of this airplane is it's a successor to the advanced tactical fighter of the late 1980s and 1990s. And that was the F-22. And so this is really intended as an F-22 follow-on. It's considered a 6th generation fighter over a 5th generation fighter such as the F-22 or the F-35.
Yeah, but you know what's so funny about him talking about this? Oh, this is a 6th generation fighter. These guys haven't built a 1st generation fighter. They haven't built a glider. They haven't built an ultralight aircraft. They've built nothing, John.
No, they have a video, like a drone promotional video. They claim to manufacture drones now, but I haven't been able to find any evidence of a single manufactured drone by them. And that teaser video that they put up, it looks like some East Asian or Eastern European or Chinese drone that's built by other people. None of
Then
the
they're just
video,
gonna rebrand it. Yeah.
none of the people in that video are Stavatti. It looks like Stavatti took someone else's video and said, "Oh, look at our drone," which is rather
Okay.
ridiculous.
So next generation means 6th generation.
It
And
could.
now I know that with your impressive background in aerospace, you've really been doing this all your life.
His impressive background in aerospace, 30 years of failure, John.
It's also funny to mention that they refer to the SM-39 as a 6th generation, but now that Donald Trump has given the NGAD contract to Boeing,
Now they're saying it's 7th generation.
now it's the 7th generation. No, we'll just plus one the generation.
Yeah,
It's
it's
no big
bigger
deal.
and better. Yeah.
There are some very exciting materials science breakthroughs that come out of developing something like this.
And again, you've proven that their so-called material science breakthroughs, the intellectual property of those things and the patents belong to somebody who was working with Stavatti, but then decided to leave, and they no longer have access to any of this shit.
Correct, and you'll remember in a recent live stream, it gets worse. If you remember in a recent live stream, David Wilcock has like switched to the SM-31. He started holding that model up now, saying that they're focusing more on that. And he actually said that the reason that they're doing that is because the SM-39 requires quote unquote breakthroughs. He's basically admitting they can't make it yet.
We don't have the breakthroughs.
He's
to build
basically
that one,
admitting that they don't have the technical and scientific ability to manufacture the aircraft, which is a stunning admission, because he's saying, oh, it goes Mach 4 and it does all this stuff and it has laser weapons. And then later on he says, oh, well, it actually requires breakthroughs.
Sometimes, John, I wish my father was still around because he was a helicopter mechanic and an aircraft enthusiast. And like, I would love to have my father on my show to explain why there's difficulty in getting a plane to go Mach 4.
Oh, I'm sure he'd love
He
Stavatti.
would rip David Wilcock and Beskar apart. Because friends, first of all, the fastest jet ever built is probably the Blackbird, and you can't. They had to build it out of like incredible amounts of titanium that they got from the Russians to withstand the heat, and even then, I believe, John, they couldn't fly it at full tilt. Like they had to hold back because the fuselage would start melting.
Yeah,
even with titanium. So how are these? If the CIA and the government putting every dollar they could into the Blackbird couldn't get past Mach 4, how are they doing it?
And the Blackbird had all these quirks. Like the Blackbird, it pushed the envelope in its capabilities
It's
so
my favorite
much
plane. It's my favorite
that
plane of all time.
like the seals on that aircraft, when that aircraft was on the ground and not flying, it would leak. It would leak all over the place. And the reason that it would leak all over the place is because it would push the limit so far in its flight envelope when it was actually operating in the sky at altitude that they couldn't make it not leak both on the ground and in the sky because there's so much, it pushed the tolerances so badly that they had to make a decision that it would either leak on the sky or it would leak on the ground. And so they designed all the seals and connections to leak on the ground so that it was flying in the air, it would leak. So
but
I mean,
somehow they're
crazy
going to
stuff
get
like that, man.
But that was my point. Like anybody that knows anything about aircraft history would know that these clowns just willy nilly claiming that they've got a Mach 4 plane that they're going to produce. Like there's major heat like how are you getting past the heat problems? How are you? There's just a multitude of things. If Mach 4 was so easy, Boeing would already have a Mach 4 fighter. Do you know what I mean? And like Northrop Grumman would have one, and other big aerospace companies that have successfully been producing fighter jets would have this already. But we're supposed to believe that some company that's never even made a glider is somehow going to leapfrog right past all of the major aerospace companies in America with their proven track record of success and somehow beat them all. It's ridiculous.
The company's products, proposals, and enthusiasm, it all goes back to Chris Beskar. I've talked to several sources who have told me that Chris Beskar knows a lot about aerospace. They've stopped short of saying that he's, like a prodigy or a genius, but they've spoken positively about Chris Beskar's aerospace knowledge. But we have to say, just because you have a lot of aerospace knowledge doesn't mean you can build an aircraft or run an aerospace company.
If
Stephen,
he could, he would have already.
We all know
31 years to no aircraft.
We all know lots of car guys, right? Guys that they talk about cars, know a lot about cars.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that those guys can build a car or run an automotive company.
Yeah, my brother is like a master mechanic, and he loved the Tucker. Do you ever see that movie Tucker? Mm-hmm. That was the car that was super advanced and came out of nowhere, and then they kind of the Big Four kind of shut him down because he was so.
Oh, was that the electric car that was like decades ago?
No, it wasn't electric, but like it had like moving headlights and seat belts, and it was super fast, and it was so. Anyway, my brother is like a master diesel mechanic, and for a time he was looking into trying to start a motor company. He was going to build motors and then cars, and he gave up because of the regulation. That's another thing we've never talked about. The regulations to manufacture and sell aircraft in the United States, even to build like a one-seater trainer with props, the regulations and it's just an incredible, like, it's so pie in the sky what these guys are claiming, like, and they've never produced anything. So like, you're right. Just because somebody knows something about something doesn't mean that they can manufacture it, design it, get past all the government regulation,
You'll also know that I'm conservative with like my reaction and disbelief to the SM-39 and all this Mach 4 baloney. And the reason is, Stephen, and I don't think we've talked about this on Truth Seekers yet, but my research has uncovered a proposed or alleged Stavatti craft that has capabilities that are so ridiculous that like they wouldn't even be believable science fiction. Have we talked about the Stavatti Hawk before?
No, let's finish this clipping, then we'll get to that though.
I know that part
I
of
don't
the
know if we're gonna be able to get to that.
Oh, that's yeah. We might say that
issue
for
is
another
like,
one.
yeah.
this is a very, very fast aircraft. How fast does this plane actually go?
Well, this airplane design is a little bit different than other fighters. We went through a period in aviation where we had large engines, and due to composite construction and other material limitations, they weren't going very fast. This particular design is a next generation fighter intended to operate at speeds of up to Mach 4 and beyond.
They're going to get past Mach 4, John. Okay.
So it's a
Mach 4.
It's a Mach 4 air dominance fighter. That's not to say it can't fly slow, because it can. It has an approach speed of about 85 knots on a carrier deck. So it can go very slow. It can also go very fast. So it's extraordinary in that sense.
Is there anything faster than Mach 4? We saw the Top Gun movie. He made it to...
Okay.
Oh yeah, the Top Gun movie. Let's design our products based off of Top Gun.
Yeah, that's our stuff. I love how
This-
they got new plastic models for this.
Well,
right?
this plastic, most of what David holds up, those are 3D printed, and he 3D prints those. Have we shown the video of David in the boiler room 3D printing these?
Yes.
Because I have that
Yeah.
video.
We've shown that before.
Yeah. But this
So when
is
we look
produced
at
by
the
a third
cockpit
party.
here, Chris,
This one's made by a third party. Probably,
Yeah. Yes, it is.
it's very small. I mean, this looks like it's a massive aircraft.
Well, it is a very big airplane.
Okay.
It's about 72 feet long.
Whoa.
It's intended to be a large air dominance fighter. It's like the size of an F-14 or an F-15 or an Su-27. So it's really the American equivalent of a Sukhoi Su-27 type airplane.
Well, it also reminds me of the one that we saw in the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.
Reminds me of Buck Rogers. Did you ever see Buck Rogers' spaceship? His fighter? It looks a lot like this one, John.
Man, it's been a long time since I've seen Buck Rogers.
I'll see if I can't pull it up. It's pretty funny.
It's
the SR-71.
The Blackbird. It's similar in many ways to the Blackbird, although it's shorter than the Blackbird.
Oh.
It doesn't quite have that mission. It's more fuel efficient than the Blackbird by a great margin.
Yeah.
And it will be powered by two
We're doing better than the CIA did making that one.
next generation variable cycle afterburning turbofans. And these engines are variable cycle in the sense that they go from being a turbofan to being a turbojet.
Oh.
And
turbojet.
at high speeds, it's a Mach 4 turbojet. It operates nearly like a ramjet. And we have a proprietary design for this engine that will be produced by our engine division known as Neothrust. Or we can produce an aircraft that uses engines
They're
from
going to
either
manufacture their own engines.
Or they're gonna buy someone else's engines and somehow still get to Mach 4. It's ridiculous.
Pratt & Whitney or General Electric.
So let's say as a customer, I want to be a little cynical. I want to rough you up a little bit. I want to say, hey, man, you guys haven't built one of these yet. How are you so confident that you're going to break all these records and do all this stuff?
Well, it gets into the fundamentals of aircraft design. A few years ago, it came out that there are next generation air dominance fighters that are being digitally designed and tested. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. This is a digitally
So
engineered aircraft.
It's in a computer.
It's something that is
Hold on.
based upon
I just want to
Fermi
say,
engineering principles.
So does that mean you...
Sure.
let's be very specific here. When he says they're digitally designed, they are 3D models designed in SolidWorks. Are you familiar with the computer program SolidWorks, Stephen?
Yeah, a little bit.
They're designed in SolidWorks. David Wilcock 3D prints these models from SolidWorks files. Just because you design a 3D in SolidWorks doesn't mean it's a viable aircraft. Anyone can design a general aircraft design in SolidWorks.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Fly it in a computer?
We do fly it in a computer, and it has been
How does that
flown.
work?
Well, you have computer simulation software that's quite accurate. It uses panel
Pause the
methods
video.
to-
Pause the video.
Okay.
I want to be very specific here. When he says we've digitally flown them, they have used the built-in functionality in SolidWorks that does like fluid simulation or flow simulation to determine aerodynamics. That is in no way a proper CFD suite to do aerospace development in. Now, I don't know a lot about aerospace development, but I am a fan of Formula One. And anyone who watches Formula One racing knows that modern Formula One cars are basically upside down airplanes. Airplanes are designed to generate lift so they go up into the sky. Formula
And
One
it's the
cars
opposite for Formula
are,
One. Yeah.
are designed to produce negative lift, sometimes called downforce, to push them into the ground because then they can go around corners faster. And modern Formula One teams are basically mini aerospace companies. They use full CFD suites, things like Fluent by a company called Ansys. Stavatti doesn't have this, and they've never told anyone that they use it. They're basically right-clicking in SolidWorks to do flow simulation in SolidWorks, and that's nowhere near good enough to design an aircraft. This is so disingenuous, and they've put this in investor materials and told the public. It's very, very
Oh
disingenuous.
yeah, we've digitally tested it and flown it. It'll be great. Yeah.
Characterize aircraft flow, and we use CFD, computational fluid dynamics.
I just talked about
combined
that.
Yeah, you just explained the scan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
with finite element modeling for structural analysis. So this is something that a great deal of engineering has already been put into it, and the airplane has already been flown
They
thousands
right-click
of
in
hours.
SolidWorks.
in
That's
the
not a great
design
deal
process.
of engineering.
It's been flown thousands of hours inside a computer, but we don't have
No.
a real one, so we've never flown it 1 minute in the real world.
And I know that one of our material science breakthroughs on this is going to be the cockpit, because
Yes.
you're going to melt at Mach 4, right? So we have to have new
Well,
material.
that's probably one of the most exciting parts of the airplane. And this aircraft, it's like the proverbial NASA spin-off technology center, where many of the innovations and breakthroughs from this airplane will be spun off into the private sector and revolutionize everything from cell phones to
Yeah, sure.
fish tank aquariums and things like that. We have a new
Well,
material.
because you could have a very hard and clear new material for the glass on your cell phone,
Correct.
right?
That's correct.
David
And so we
Wilcock,
have
you're the director of advanced technology, and you don't know any of this stuff. Oh, we could have a hard and clear material. You're director of advanced technology, David Wilcock.
He's a moron, though.
New
Give the
advanced
moron-
transparent material
Well,
that's a
give the
high
moron
temperature
some
material
leeway.
that sustains impact at very high speeds.
Well, we can say it's a transparent metal, right?
It is a transparent
Yeah.
metal, that's correct.
So people don't even realize that exists.
Well, it's something that a lot
Of course it exists. Isn't that what the space shuttle?
Well, remember, I don't think he says it in this video, but he implies that it's transparent aluminum. Stephen, that's totally stolen from the Star Trek movie. I believe it's Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, where they save the whales.
Yeah, they got transparent aluminum.
It's
to hold the
transparent
whale.
aluminum.
Yeah.
He's ripping more sci-fi stuff off. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Loser.
of laboratories throughout the world
Plagiarizing profit.
have been working on for many years.
13.
They were developed in different countries like Ukraine and Russia were working on these technologies for a long time, as were laboratories throughout Japan and Korea and, of course, in the United States. And
Well, if I could just interject, in one of my books, I wrote about transparent aluminum. That was in the Ascension Mysteries. And I talk about the
I've watched Star Trek 4 and I wrote it up in my book.
prototypes that have already come out, that we've already tested in labs. They're 500% stronger than bulletproof glass.
correct.
That's just incredible.
Yeah, it's
I bet you all of them that currently exist would melt at Mach 4, though. Don't you think so, John?
Probably, yeah. That's why they don't go that fast.
Yeah.
amazing material, and it comes out of a need to have a bird strike impact resistant canopy. So this airplane is designed to have a bird, like a goose, hit the canopy at about 500 knots.
You might make a lot of people really sad, though, Chris, because if we start
Okay.
Listen to what they're saying here. They're basically saying we need a scientific breakthrough for our aircraft to be able to withstand striking a bird.
Yeah, and now they're going to jump on the AI bandwagon and claim
Yeah.
they have a. But
I mean,
they
we can-
relabel it synthetic intelligence.
We can probably skip this video. They're basically saying that they have AI. Stavatti is calling it synthetic intelligence. No one at Stavatti has a computer programmer and has any background in AI. This is all just pure. We wish we had a breakthrough
We can
speculation.
skip this
nonsense.
one too because he says they're going to be able to sell it around the world, but
Yeah.
there's
I-
trade
I would-
embargoes. You can't sell weapons to our adversaries, morons.
True, and I've done some research on that, and that's in my book as well. I should also add, it's not in this sizzle reel; it's in somewhere else. Actually, Ed Kabursky said this in one of his videos. Ed Kabursky claims that Chris Beskar designed the helmet that is used by pilots in the F-35. Stephen, anyone can find this information. I did like 2 minutes of research. It wasn't developed by Chris Beskar. It was developed by a company called Elbit Systems. Chris Beskar did not design the F-35 helmet.
Oh, but the Mandalorian armor was named after him, though.
Don't get me started on that. That's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, and here he lies about being part of the NGAD initiative for the next
Yeah.
developing the next generation fighter. Let's play that.
We're looking at the sale of this airplane to close allies. And that can be Saudi Arabia, that can be Japan, that can be South Korea, that can be India, that can be Israel. There's a host of customers for this airplane. We're looking at selling 1,500 of these airplanes worldwide, including sales to the United States. So this is something that we're going to be mass producing this airplane at a rate of 50 to 100 per year continuously for maybe a 20-year period. So we could get up to production
An
rate.
airplane manufacturer that's never manufactured a single airplane is going to build 50 to 100 of these in 1 year.
I should mention on the concept of the CFD and digitally flying these things, aircraft companies and Formula One teams, they don't just use digital tools. They still build half-size mock-ups for actual wind tunnel testing.
Wind tunnel testing.
And as we proved almost 2 years ago on
They
the
have
show,
no wind tunnel
they
contracts,
have
yeah.
no wind tunnel contracts.
There you go.
2000. If necessary, we could surge produce this to the rates of the F-4 Phantom, which would bring us up to 5,000 units. But the core goal is that we're selling it at $85 million. It's not a $300 million plane.
Oh,
so
pause
that the
video.
Navy.
I made an X post, and I don't know if you caught this. If you look at Stavatti's SM39 literature, it says in the fine print that they're selling it for $85 million. But if there are cost overruns up to and including 10%, then they can charge you 10% additional, and there's nothing you can do about it if you have a contract with them.
Yeah, so it could be 90 plus million.
93.5 million, yeah.
Great.
Could potentially have 700 of these, so that the Air Force could potentially have 900 of these. These are aircraft that replace F-15s and the old F-14 on a one-per-one basis. Actually,
For the same money,
for
but
the
you're getting
same
so
money.
much more.
You're getting a lot more. And so it becomes a very important project from the standpoint of if the United States wants to be able to project air power on all of its carrier decks, this is the right solution. Now, I'm not saying it's the only solution. I fully encourage the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force to buy 200 NGADs from Lockheed or 300 NGADs from Boeing. That's perfectly fine.
And
But
for
I'm
those unaware, NGAD is Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter.
Right, and Trump announced like a month ago that, or a little over a month ago, that it's actually going
And
to
here
Boeing.
he lies and says they've done classified work. This is a problem if you're soliciting public investment, I would think.
It is a problem, and I've talked to sources who have told me that Stavatti can't get the security clearances. So,
well, let's listen to him live.
This
the
is a
original
problem.
design that we presented to the Navy when we first started being part of the NGAD industry effort. And the reason for that is it is, of course, a cool design. It looks good, but there's been advancements and modifications recently over the design evolution. So this
Yeah, right. Oh, is this the next one?
neat about Stavatti, we've been in business for a very long time. And we've been doing things since 1994, a lot of that within the classified era. So we're not going away. We're going to be here for the long term.
He said a lot of what they've done has been in the classified area. Was that like those laser weapons that they were supposed to be building?
I mean,
is that what's classified?
The
Argon?
I mean, this goes back to like Chris Beskar allegedly working at Area 51 with aliens. Oh, it's all classified. It's all also unproven.
Yeah, it's bullshit. In other words,
but Beskar in that video, Beskar gives a time frame of 4.5 to 5 years for delivery for the SM39. I mean, that's so ridiculous. Boeing that they just won with their NGAD prototype, they've already been flying it in the sky for 5 years.
Oh, and they got
so it's so ridiculous.
They got trashed in the comments.
Oh, and these are just a couple of them. They got really, really trashed. In fact, David initially made the video private because he started getting trashed so bad.
Wouldn't ascension make this all pointless? Furthermore, wouldn't these aircraft be out of date with all the ET flying discs they're supposed to be showing up en masse? It doesn't make sense. You won't be able to ascend because you dump toxic waste all over your Stavatti property. now number one wants to do business with an environmental toxic dumper. No one wants to do business with an environmental toxic dumper. That would look bad for their business to associate with you. They got wrecked in the comments. I don't. Yeah. Please
So
let's
this
come down for a second. This thing looks totally off. I follow you almost everything with the global awakening, and you will always have my infinite gratitude for that. But the Stavatti thing just feels off. Even his moron followers are like, wait, none of this makes any sense, John. It doesn't make
it
any
doesn't.
sense.
It
It
doesn't. I
doesn't make
mean,
any sense. No.
that was basically my impression right before I was, writing the book, but just casually researching Stavatti. I kept looking at this stuff thinking something ain't right here. It just ain't right. And of course, now that I've done like serious deeper research and been writing the book, now it's far more than just ain't right. It's
Well, you know,
this is a big scandal. This is a big
one of the
scandal.
things that struck me is looking at some of the previous claims. You know, this is not the first time they've claimed that they're going to build this super advanced aircraft. And the thing is, the pictures look like stuff that I generated on an Amiga in 1992.
They're very
With
poor
with
3D concept art. It's
yeah,
very
it
poor.
looks like the first generation 3D concept art maker was used to make this in the 1990s. This doesn't look modern. This doesn't look like they're using Maya or even Blender that's free or
No, they're using SolidWorks and Cadia to basically make these 3D designs,
my
and that's all
goodness.
they are. Like when David Wilcock says, "Oh, the thing is totally done in the computer. We can just print it out." Like David Wilcock has no idea. And remember, he's the director of advanced technology, and he doesn't know this
Director
stuff.
of advanced bullshit. Buffalo spawns with 5. They're going to get Katy Perry to fly for them since she's an astronaut now.
Oh, that thing with her was so embarrassing, dude.
I don't understand too because it seems like Jeff Bezos is just scamming people. That wasn't truly space. It's like the edge of space, you know?
Yeah,
It,
and they were controlling the whole thing from the ground. They weren't
remotely,
the women
yeah.
in the women in the capsule were doing nothing but like looking pretty for the camera.
Well, there you go. It's his girlfriend. I'd send my girlfriend to space if I had the money, I guess, right? You're going to get laid when she gets back, I would hope. Like, I shot you into space, bitch. Get on the bed. Chill Station 7 with 5 with a super sticker. Thank you for that. It's a parent
Hey,
character.
there's
Thank you, Chill Station. Big ups. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
there's one more Substack post we should check out. My latest Substack post,
All
this
right.
research crumb that I found. It's very bizarre and disturbing. Stavatti may be impersonating dead people.
Oh, that's
And I
wonderful.
and I have the facts and I mean video evidence to back it up. And the
Let me
public
see.
records.
Oh, I got to find your, I got to find the,
Well, let me give you the link. I'll send it to
okay.
you.
Great. Thank you. I'm terrible at this.
Okay, I just sent it.
Okay. We'll get that up. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about to close things
So
out here.
we've mentioned Ed Kabursky briefly in the past. I think we're going to be talking about him more in the future. Ed Kabursky is sort of a how do I describe him? He claims he's
Wackadoo.
a
He's a
he
wackadoo.
he claims that he is an engineering technologist. I know that he's an audiophile, and I also know that he's claimed to be an alleged Stavatti crowdfunder. He did purchase Stavatti's course back in 2021. What was it called? The disclosure, the whole course.
Yeah.
Um, he purchased that, and we also know from video and photographic evidence that, and you can just click right there. Just click on the tile on the
I
picture, and
got
you'll
it.
get the whole
Yeah,
article.
I'll get it. Yeah.
We also know that Ed Kabursky is in direct contact with Chris Beskar and David Wilcock because we have the photographs of the text messages. Ed made them public.
Nice. Yes. So Stavatti Research Crumbs is Stavatti impersonating dead people. This will be a relatively short post. Aside from public information available about Stavatti, my personal Stavatti contacts and sources, and David Wilcock's YouTube channel, my research has led me to another venue which contains a wealth of Stavatti information. Linda Moore's YouTube and Patreon channel, Potentials, among the many talking points about Stavatti on this channel, most of them made by a man named Ed Kabursky. Ed is an alleged crowdfunder of Stavatti who makes many Stavatti relevant statements in multiple videos. but one instance in particular is highly suspicious. Though Ed is a frequent guest on Potentials, this particular statement was made in a video uploaded on April 1st, 2024 to his own YouTube channel, The Technology Envoy, at Mark 108 of the video. Ed claims to have had a telephone call with Stavatti associate Adarsh Deepak, which later on led to a conversation with Stavatti CEO Chris Beskar.
And we can play the clip so the audience can hear.
I had a lot of contact information for Stavatti
And this is fair
all
use,
over
by
the
the
place. And I phoned Niagara Falls, New York, and talked to Dr. Deepak. And Dr. Deepak was the chief scientist for Stavatti Aerospace. And I talked to him for about half an hour. We had a really awesome conversation. And then as I was driving back to town, it's probably like a half an hour drive or something. Obviously, Dr. Deepak had got a hold of Chris Beskar, and Chris texted me and said, "Hi, this is Chris Beskar." So that's essentially how I ended up getting in contact with Chris Beskar, and that was February 18th of 2023 is when that happened, right? So that's
February 8th
and then
of
I've
2023.
had
February 18th of 2023.
And let
He
me
clearly
guess,
says
he's
he
dead.
clearly talked. Yeah, we're about to see that. He claims to have talked to this guy on February 18th, 2023. No misunderstanding there. There's just one problem. He died on December 5th, 2022.
Oh, he's talking to a dead guy. So is somebody at Stavatti impersonating the dead guy, or what's going on here, John?
And I talk about here, the simplest explanation is that Ed simply misremembered the date. You know, anyone can misremember a date. But Ed recalls the date very clearly and quickly. He doesn't seem to have misremembered the date. It seems to be very vivid in his imagination because he got to talk to Chris Beskar afterward the same day.
Yeah.
So if Ed did not misremember the date,
Then
there's
Stavatti's impersonating a dead person on the
there's
telephone.
reason to believe that they're impersonating a dead person. This is very, very bizarre and curious. I mean, it's easy to see why they think they could get away with it, right? Because the dead person's not going to complain to anyone. Because
It's just like David Wilcock using dead sources constantly. Stephen Greer does that too. They always attribute things they found out about the aliens to dead people so that you can't fact check them.
Right.
That's what I believe they do that for.
Those are all the Stavatti research crumbs since the last time I was on the show. Of course, you
Right.
mentioned earlier that David Wilcock claims I sent a brutal attack against Chris Beskar's wife, Maya.
Yes, and we showed that you just very respectfully asked
yeah.
him questions. There was no brutal attack. David
totally
Wilcock
brutal.
lied to 500,000 people again.
Totally
There's no brutal attack. David Wilcock, when a journalist needs information, they generally respectfully reach out through email or phone, and that's all John did. John's an author and a researcher. John, I'll give you this, John. You know more about the whole Stavatti history and everything than anybody else I know. That's why we're glad to have you here so that you can help. I don't have to do it. You can break it down for us. It's a tremendous resource to truth seekers. So thank you.
Well, I don't think anyone has the time or the wherewithal to spend the time and research that I'm
not
doing.
on all of this.
I will say
moving parts. Yeah.
I will say that Stavatti is getting some journalism exposure in the mainstream media. The most obvious example of that is Jonathan Epstein's article in the Buffalo
trashing
News,
them as a scam, basically.
Which was also followed by the Buffalo News's entire editorial board
calling
unanimously making a joint editorial saying the title of the
gist
article
of it is they're a scam. Yeah.
It said Stavatti should pack up their shit and GTFO. That's basically what the editorial said.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
And then, of course, David Wilcock on a subsequent live stream when he was asked by someone about, I believe the person's name was Nanasani or something like that. Nanasani asked David at the end of one of his live streams if David was
they're going to sue them. They're suing them. He said they're suing the newspaper.
They asked David about this alleged day in May where they're supposed to have like a public hangar day. And David's response was, well,
he didn't know about it.
That Buffalo News article that talked about that's something that people are going to get sued over. So David is now basically saying that Stavatti
not only is he suing me, he's suing the Buffalo News. Yes.
Exactly.
Well, maybe we can split a lawyer, who knows? Yves Ball says, loving this show, Truth Seekers Rocks. Thank you very much for your kindness. And Tina Tomaszewski, I grew up with a John Tomaszewski, so I actually know how to say that name. It's a Polish name. I can't help but think what a great resting spot that goatee would make for Wilcock's nuts. Oh my God.
So there's another interesting thing about the Dimitrov case I forgot to mention. In Stavatti's motion for summary judgment, they're claiming that they were recently about to strike a deal with a bankrupt Greek airline called Elenair.
Yeah.
And they're complaining in the filing, or Beskar's complaining, that Elenair, that some Greek representative of theirs has told Beskar that they found out about the Dimitrov lawsuit. So they've got cold feet now, and they're basically putting any, plans
Well, this
or
is what
ideas
I've
on hold.
said. Like every time David Wilcock says we're getting these big loans, well, banks would do their due diligence into your finance. Like I worked in finance. You don't give another company credit or money without doing your due diligence and checking into their history. Is anybody suing them? What is their average?
Well,
I used to be able to tell. I used to do corporate credit work, and I would call on our credit application. You had to list 3 other creditors at least. Depending on how much money. Like for example, if you want $100,000 worth of credit from the company, meaning we'll ship you up to 100K in goods and put you on net 30, net 60, net 90, whatever terms we agree to. But I would call their other creditor. Right. So anybody that looks into Stavatti is going to find out they didn't pay a lot of their other creditors. Their other creditors are suing them.
well, I'm
know?
hesitant to say that anybody that looks into Stavatti will find this, because,
It is, yes.
do you remember when Danica Patrick hosted David?
Yeah, she knew nothing about any of this shit.
Well, not only that, Stephen, when you reviewed that, you left out the best part. At the very end of that video, Danica Patrick tells David Wilcock she wants to test drive a hover car for him.
Oh, great.
You left that out. It was at the very end of the video.
Oh, it's probably already beat from listening to that
when she made that
video.
When she made that video, Stavatti was in default in the Dimitrov case. They were basically guilty
already.
And she could have done like 30 seconds on Google to find that out, and she didn't do it.
Arlene, our wonderful mod, is sharing your Substack so everybody can keep up with your research. Best Stavatti research, even though you're sending heinous attacks to people.
I know, so brutal.
Brutal attacks. And by the
way, I don't know if David Wilcock knows this or not, but obviously Chris Beskar's wife isn't the only one that I'm emailing.
Yeah.
I wonder if David knows about the other emails I've been sending and the other people I've been talking to.
And David Wilcock once said about John Christian Spadavecchia, John Christian Spadavecchia is a total attacker. Any name I put out there, this guy is all over it. He just never stops. It's incredible. And that's a quote from David Wilcock. Yeah, you're doing your job.
There's
more
to
leads, you're doing a good journalism job, I have respect for what you do.
With this Greek airline, this is a bigger story than just
and that's the point I was making, John. If somebody's going to be an investor in a company, they're going to find out how have the other investors that have invested in you done on their investment. And when they find out that one of the major investors is suing you because he didn't even get his principal investment back, they're not going to give you millions of dollars. So every time you hear David, we're getting a $10 million deal, a $50 million, $500 million, $1 billion. Nobody's giving $1 billion to a company that can't even pay back $1 million,
Yeah, I go
crazy.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole so much right now. I talk about this more in my book, but this Greek airline is bankrupt, and Chris Beskar is trying to claim that since the investor now allegedly has cold feet, that it's costing Stavatti hundreds of millions, and they're threatening Dimitrov to countersue him for hundreds of millions because now this Greek airline has cold feet, but they're bankrupt. It's so ridiculous. I go in this
ridiculous. Yeah, this is just one big rabbit hole of bullshittery.
But one more thing I would like to mention, and then I guess after that we can move on to the latest Macario clips. But
oh no, we're gonna wrap things up. We're already over 2 hours, so I'm gonna do that on another night.
Then we can wrap it up. I just want to mention something else I briefly discussed, that David talks about like demonic entities and Christianity and Satanism. I mentioned in an X post that David is reading prophecies or alleged prophecies from someone named Alice Bailey. And if you look into this person, Alice Bailey, they are the founder of a company called the Lucifer Publishing Company.
Suck with David Wilcock. You're helping a known Luciferian. Yeah.
And
great.
not only is she the founder, but she writes many books. I have digital copies of some of the books, and they're basically promoting like theosophy and New Age concepts.
Oh, it's right
And
up
yet,
David
and yet,
Wilcock's bullshit.
and yet, David Wilcock is telling his audience, "Oh, Christianity, Archangel Michael told me this and that." And on the same token, he's reading prophecy from Alice Bailey. And Stephen, in this latest live stream, he was reading stuff from Rudolf Steiner. That's another New Age occultist.
Of course.
Like,
yeah.
David's plagiarizing prophecies they're just a hodgepodge of esoteric this or that.
So what do you think's going to happen when Ascension doesn't happen for David Wilcock this year?
Well,
he said May. Now he's kicking the can to sometime this year so he can grift for 7 more months off of his moron followers.
He said Ascension and what some people consider the Christian rapture will happen in May 2025. That being said, in the last couple months, and other folks like Hidden in Plain Sight have noticed this, David has kind of been saying some things sort of, I guess, anticipate that he's going to have to get ahead and retcon that whole thing. He's been saying things like, "Oh, no one knows the hour of the day," and
yeah,
it may get
meanwhile,
delayed.
you predicted it, you dumbass.
He's been saying things and kind of strategizing clearly for the fact that I think he knows that prophecy is not going to come to fruition.
Yeah, and the funny thing is like he's so desperate for money that he can't stop doing these weekly streams. So I'm curious, like even if we give him until January 2026, that means he's only got 6 more months to grift off of this thing before he's going to have to do something, because the angels were wrong. No Ascension. The angels were wrong. No open extraterrestrial contact happened in 2025.
It depends on if he keeps doing his normal weekly shtick and getting super chats.
Hey, yeah, that's another thing. Don't you think he's getting worn out rebroadcasting the same shit over and over and over again?
He constantly complains. He constantly says things like, "Oh, I don't really want to be here today. I kind of had to drag myself out of bed. I didn't get any sleep last night." He says things like, "Oh, I still need an income, so I have to do this." He constantly says things explicitly or implicitly that he's only doing it for the money. He's desperate. And he doesn't enjoy doing the weekly live streams. He wishes that he could stop.
Yeah, I think he certainly was doing better numbers wise when he would only do one stream every so often. It used to be once every time he had a course, he would do a bunch of live streams for a little while to promote the course, and then he'd go away for months on end. Now he's here every week, and it's like the same regurgitated shit. Pyramid power, fake Russian science, crop circles. It's just the same, but he's already used this material over and over and over again. So, like, how long can he keep these weekly streams of nonsense going? Half of them are Q-Tard post reading sessions, so that's half the show. He's just reading Q-Tard posts. Like,
I don't know if this has been brought up in depth on the show before, but if you look at the numbers that David Wilcock was doing in 2020 with his YouTube streams, he's lost approximately 90% of his audience from those streams.
Wow.
Stephen, if you go back and look at those COVID videos that he was doing in 2020, those videos on YouTube, they have over 1 million views.
Yeah, look at him now.
And nowadays, he struggles to break 100K. A lot of times, he doesn't break 100K. He's lost approximately 90% of his audience. And you're right. Some of that has to do with the fact that his presentations has basically become the same regurgitated crap over and over again.
Yeah, it's like cycled over and over. Let's just recycle it.
We cannot discount his fall from grace with Gaia and Corey Good and his divorce from Beth. We cannot discount the effect that those things have also probably had on his audience. Because let's be honest, he was getting 1 million views in 2020 as his wife Beth was on him with the streams. I'm sure she was bringing in some viewers too.
All those women warriors, yes.
So his fall from grace has been very substantial. And David will say, "Oh, that's because I'm censored on X and all these other places."
Yeah, he's shadow banned.
That's clearly not true.
Well, he's blaming me for that too. Did you hear him? He basically is blaming me for his lack of views. Like,
yeah,
I'm
he's
manipulating Twitter. Like, according to him, I'm a master hacker. I can hack into bank
Yeah,
accounts. I can
and,
shadow ban people on Twitter and YouTube.
And you're sending death threats to people, and you're sending suspicious packages to
Well,
people.
my thing is
You're
show me.
Steven, you're
the death
basically
threat. He never shows any receipts. And tonight we saw all the proof for what we're saying, you know?
You're basically a murderer, the Unabomber, and a master hacker all rolled into one, is what
That's me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. We kind of burned through the clock. I'm going to do the clips on another night because that's just its own thing.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, like I've got time this week. We'll see if we can't squeeze it in. Since he wants to keep making false accusations about me, you know, he'll get twice my attention this week. Tonight we covered the shady charity stuff and an update for Stavatti. I'm sure there'll be some updates and I hope you'll come back when there is.
Yeah, I'm anticipating that their lawsuit in New York, their creditor lawsuit for their accounting firm that was fired back in I think February or January. Stavatti is in default. They never got a lawyer or responded. So I'm anticipating they'll be in default in that case soon. So that's one of the things I'm anticipating. I'm anticipating
unless the money finally comes in that David Wilcock has been saying for 2 years is coming next week, then they'll be able to pay that guy, right?
Yeah, but you know, let's be clear here. Remember that email Macario sent Beskar back in 2022, and Beskar said in writing that Wilcock officially got involved in Stavatti of April of 2019. Well, it's April of 2025. It's been 6 years that David Wilcock has been a Stavatti investor. He's been officially a part of the company.
6 years,
and he has
back.
not gotten a single dime from them. Not a single dime.
In fact, they're asking him for more because he mentions once in a while, oh, nobody else on the board has money, so sometimes I have to bail them out when there's insurance payments due.
I think the last time he complained about that was back on his Canadian vacation where he said, oh, I had to help Stavatti out again this week. Well, yeah. David, I think you're going to have to helping Stavatti out a lot more in the future. Unless you choose not to do so. Unless you actually push back like a man.
Wouldn't it be funny if David Wilcock woke up and he sued them for his money back too? That would be kind of a funny end to the saga.
I don't know if I've told you about that, but if David Wilcock for any reason decides to turn on Stavatti,
they're fucked.
That's the worst thing that could happen to them because David Wilcock has a bully pulpit on his YouTube channel.
Yeah,
he'll get in front of 1,000 people and he'll say, "Oh, I've been betrayed. The deep state betrayed me. It was all a lie.
Stole my money." Yeah, forget $70,000. Forget the $7,700 he claims I stole from him. He'll be able to say that Stavatti stole $1.5 million from him or whatever.
Yeah, they took millions. They took $1 million worth of my money. Bad Stavatti. They're the deep state.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for giving us this update. Always
hold
great
on.
Information.
I have to cook dinner. Look what I've got for dinner tonight.
A ribeye. Oh wait, hold on. Let me solo you here. Let me solo that. You've got a bison ribeye steak. Yes,
that's right. It's my dinner.
Freezer. I'm gonna do it. Thank you for reminding me. I definitely have to do that. Yeah.
Well, you're still doing the whole thing at the end of May on your birthday, right? Where you reveal where like the box of dildos was hidden. And
sure. Yeah. Still planning on it. Yeah. But I'm a little concerned that he's just going to kick the can and make excuses for May, and they'll say, no, things got delayed because of the timeline shift or whatever nonsense new age he comes up with.
You have to admit, David Wilcock has a lot of experience kicking the can. He kicked the can with his old Ascension 2000 website. He kicked the can with 2012. You know, he's kicked the can remarkably with the Corey Good crap because he promoted Corey Good, and as we now know, because of people like Shane the Ruiner, David Wilcock conspired with Corey Good to make up the fake UFO stories, and he's still kicking the can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So David Wilcock, if David Wilcock can successfully kick the can with this May 2025 Ascension stuff, that we just have to admit that he's good at kicking the can. He has experience doing it, and his followers, they still haven't gotten it yet.
Well, they're dumb as rocks. God bless them. You know, that one of the things that does make me kind of smile though is that like whether people realize this or not, most of David Wilcock's crowd are extremely old people. You know, he's not winning over 20-year-old viewers. You know what I mean? He's got the old lady crowd, the old crystal hippie bitches, and they're all going to die off in the next few years. So good luck with the grift, dude, you know?
Yeah, I think David knows that, and I think that's why he's not liking having to do this every Sunday.
He's
He
desperate. Yeah,
he
he's
knows
desperate.
that
He's
this is
panicking.
he
He's
knows it's a
clearly
loser's game.
panicking. Look at what he's accusing me of. That is delusional,
Yeah,
paranoid. Just
he does not want people coming here and watching this channel and shows. He does not
well, that's
want
why
that
he won't
happening.
name us. He won't name
No.
us. But you're
I mean,
right. You
he
mentioned
kind of named
before
me.
the Streisand effect. You know, people are finding us because they want to know the other side of the story, and once they do, I doubt that they're going to believe him. We have receipts, we have proof, we have court documents,
No.
we have body cam footage,
And
we have all this proof. He hasn't proved one of his accusations against me, let alone all of them.
He recently claimed on his last live stream that he DM'd Shadow of Ezra, and he said that him and Shadow of Ezra have no problems, but he didn't show the DM. So
Of
like
course
it's just trust me, bro stuff. Like we actually showed the DM where Shadow of Ezra said that he thinks David sounds insane. Exactly.
David sounds insane. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you. Enjoy your wonderful bison ribeye steak dinner. You get to see what it's like to live like a king, like Wilcock, for one night at least. And I hope you'll come back and share some updates when there are some.
I will. I'm sure there will be updates. I'm still writing the book. It's a long, hard slog.
Long slog, yeah.
You know, I think this book is going to be something that people want to read because I think it's pretty good, and it's got some spicy stuff in it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good night. Thank you for your participation, and don't be a stranger. John Christian Spadavecchia, ladies and gentlemen. One of those great researchers. Oh, look at that. Apollo 0101 2006 with 5. With a very great point. Howard Hughes built aircraft in weeks. Tool and die company backbone. David takes decades and still zip. Broke, bald, and gay. Go Stephen. Well, thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. If there's any last minute, bison ribeye steak and cucumbers. Yes, that's a good dinner. Yes. Enjoy the bison steak. John says Al Garay. Very, very kind of all of you. So, as you all know, and I apologize because I'm sure many of you may have tuned in tonight to hear my response to all of David Wilcock's latest crazy, wild accusations. You know, like I said in the beginning of the broadcast, I'm convinced that one of these days coming up, David Wilcock is going to shit his own pants, and he's going to go live and say that I broke into his house, shit in his pants, and then escaped. It wasn't him that shit his pants. It is ridiculous. He's blaming me for everything, right? Troll saying John is always a great guest. Yeah, absolutely. Algaray says he's a great researcher. Absolutely. And see, this is the difference between Truth Seekers and David Wilcock. We give you receipts for everything. Hey, David Wilcock, why don't you show some of the death threats that are being made against you and prove that I sent them? Why don't you prove that I tried to extort money from you? Why don't you prove that I stole money from your bank account? And by the way, David Wilcock claims that I'm stalking him, harassing him, extorting money from him, stealing money from his bank account, sending him death threats. He still hasn't filed a single police report because it's all fake theater for his dumb as rocks moron followers. And I'll have more on this soon. So I'm going to we're going to wrap things up here. I have Patreon videos to make tonight and a few other things to do. I planned another show tomorrow covering the newest fake whistleblower. Well, I don't know if he's a fake whistleblower yet, but I'm betting he is. Latest new UFO fake whistleblower from George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. However, we may punt that and do the clips tomorrow. I do want to address Macario spent so much time making these clips, and there's so many ridiculous accusations against me that we can't fit it all in. So tonight we gave you the Shady Charity update. And by the way, I'll be combining all of the David Wilcock Shady Charity stuff into one video, and we'll be premiering it this Saturday night. So congratulations, David Wilcock, you dumb dickhead. Every time you make a false accusation against me, you get more of my attention. And I want to put on the record, I have not now, nor have I ever threatened David Wilcock's life. I have not extorted money from him. I certainly didn't steal money from his bank account. I didn't call animal control on him. I did not get him swatted. You know how I know I didn't get him swatted? Because he wasn't swatted. That was all fake. He made it up. And Operation Shutdown says, talk about living rent free in his head. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I forgot. We're going to check in with the Kick chat. For those unaware, we have a Kick channel that we're co-streaming to now. And that is Truth Seeker Show, or I'm sorry, kick.com/Truth Seeker Show. And we'll give some big shout outs. We've got the other product gaming reel is over there. Chief Fuji is there. Chief Fugi. Shout out to them. Winter Soldiers over there. Big shout out. We've got Miss Tari is over there. Great user ID. I mentioned Winter Soldier. I think we've got the shout outs out of the way. Big support. We'll check in with the Kick support. For those unaware, we read every single super chat, and we also read everybody that is supporting us on Kick. So if you want to support us on Kick, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, gift a subscription, and we thank every single person. And we have Chi Fuji gifted a subscription today. So thank you very much for that. And previously, Chorgon Scornhammer subscribed. The Lucky Gremlin subscribed. Phantom Felt at 47 gifted a subscriber. King Ron gifted a subscriber. Mewtwo XV Real subscribed. Midnight Streams subscribed. Marcus Aurelius subscribed. Winter Soldier subscribed. Can't Sin and Chufugi subscribed. Peliquin gifted a subscription. Thank you all for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. And now's a good time to remind you that we are a viewer-supported show. Yes. Thank you. Sunny Callie 11 says Wilcock is saying he is David reincarnated and Stephen is Goliath reincarnated. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And by the way, David Wilcock, I don't believe in reincarnation. I don't believe you're the reincarnation of anything. I believe you're the first incarnation of David Wilcock, New Age scammer, and UFO and secret space scammer and all of that. And yeah, so Lily is here. Hey, hi, Lily. Good to see you here. So we have done our due diligence. And also Winter Soldier is reminding me. Winter Soldier is reminding everybody that you can subscribe on Twitch, and you can just use your Amazon Prime subscription, and it won't cost you anything. You could throw a couple bucks in our hat. If you're an Amazon Prime member, they let you subscribe to one Twitch channel a month for free. Yeah, Mr. Protractor says Steven's survival guide, my slides. My sides. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. For those unaware, David published the Steven Survival Guide, right? And it's just filled with slanderous, fake accusations against me. Hey, David Wilcock, how long are you going to keep saying I'm doing all this evil shit without proving any of it? You have as much proof of me doing all these things as you had proof of Corey Good time traveling and going on secret space adventures. You're a goddamn wackadoo. And the fundamental problem here is that David Wilcock thinks he's special. He thinks he's important. You're not. You're a grifter and a scumbag and a degenerate. And yes, I believe you're a con artist. And I'm allowed to say that because we live in the United States. And I can prove over and over and over again that you've been involved in, let's just say, shady things that most people would consider a scam. Therefore, if I call you a con artist or a scam artist, if I say that, if I express my personal belief that you're a con artist and you're a scam artist, I'm allowed to do that. For example, when you sold an anti-gravity course, you told everybody, if you buy my course, you'll be able to do it too. Show me somebody that created anti-gravity after taking your course. Show me somebody that created free energy after taking your course. And how about all those Let's Prepare for Ascension courses that you sold people for $333? How many people ascended? Can you show us any of them? And of course, there's your latest scam. You're talking to Archangel Michael, who's giving you secret, sacred knowledge, but an angel wants you to sell it to stupid people for $333, not give it away for free. Chill Station 7 with 5, who says, and he's gay. Yeah, you gotta love it. So I'll be back tomorrow night and we're gonna do the slides. We're gonna go through David Wilcock's ridiculous slides, all his false allegations and accusations against me. I'm going to prepare my own slides, David Wilcock, and I will detail with evidence and proof and power and glory the number of times that you have lied about me, made completely and totally false allegations and accusations against me, and more. If I have time, I'm going to go through all of your videos and I will clip everything that you accused me of. We'll go through it all, including your last live stream where you unhingedly decided that I'm sending people suspicious packages. I'm sending every truther death threats. Where's the proof of any of that? Do you really think you're going to get away with this shit, David Wilcock? And let's be clear. David Wilcock's entire strategy, he cannot argue with the facts that we present here because he's an intellectual weakling and a coward and a con artist. Yes, he cannot argue with the facts that we have laid out. Stavatti is being sued by creditors. They're being sued by a sprinkler company. They're even being sued by their own accountant because they didn't pay their accountant. They're being sued by investors who called them a Ponzi scheme and an investment scam in court documents, which they admitted to being a Ponzi scam in court filings by saying, we were going to pay that old investor back with new investor money. That's called a Ponzi scheme. He cannot argue with the fact that he scammed the American public, the worldwide public, with fake secret space stories for years and years and years, raking in millions of dollars, selling completely and totally fake stories that we know are fake now because Corey Goode admitted that they were fake. And then, of course, we've got revelations, like John mentioned, from Shane the Ruiner. David Wilcock was in on scamming everybody. He knew that those stories were fake and wanted somebody to make up stories with him to sell the stupid people in his audience. So David Wilcock cannot withstand debate. He cannot withstand being challenged. That's why he's apparently paying an 8-person team to sanitize his YouTube comments, sanitize his Twitter. Are you that afraid, David Wilcock, of the truth? Are you that scared of me that you have to hire 8 people? And let's put this on the record. David Wilcock claims there's some super powerful alliance that's going to save Earth, but they can't stop people from leaving you mean tweets or comments on your YouTube channel, you goober. Really? The alliance can't stop one kid? I must be better than the alliance, bigger than the alliance, more powerful than the alliance. And by the way, we're going to start something new. Join the new Real Alliance, the Real Alliance against scumbags, con artists, grifters, and dirtballs lying to people on the internet. Join the Alliance of Truth against David Wilcock. You can all join. It costs nothing. I'm not selling it for $333. Sonny Callie is here with one for the goal. The reptilian's butt-banging Wilcock. Yeah, and he loves to tell people that I made fun of him for making those claims. Listen, if you go on the internet and claim that reptilian aliens butt-banged you and made you make a banana sandwich, I'm going to make fun of you. I'm allowed to. And by the way, a lot of what we do here is a comedic parody, right? No, Midnight Mark was too scared to show up tonight. Imagine that. The Real Alliance of Truth. Yes, join the Real Alliance of Truth. David Wilcock, you've built your entire life around lies and half-truths and fake pseudoscience and fake claims. You cannot withstand the truth. And your echo chamber, we're chipping away at that fucking echo chamber every week. I'm chipping away at that echo chamber, reaching more and more people, converting more people from the side of lies to the side of truth. Why would you listen to David Wilcock lie to you for years on end when you can come here and get the real truth, where we peel back the layers of deception, where we give you receipts, court documents, and overwhelming evidence and proof to support what we are saying is true. Wilcock has no proof what he's saying is true. He has trust me bro stories. He has fake government insiders. He's got a fake charity that doesn't really do charity, but they're collecting money from the public like they're a charity. It's great. all those shady business dealings. Praise the cash, says SR, and much love. Yeah, chipping away at the echo chamber every week. That's right. That's my goal. And just to be clear, I have never threatened anyone's life, but I sure have threatened a lot of grifters' grifts, and I sure have threatened a lot of new age scammers' scams. We have destroyed more UFO, new age, and fake psychic scammers' scams than almost anybody on the internet. It's one of the things that we're known for. And it's interesting that David Wilcock thinks he's going to sue me. Show me a judge or a jury in the United States of America that's going to side with a guy who's been scamming people on the internet, provably scamming people on the internet with fake shit for decades. Take that side versus the side of somebody who's been telling people the truth and exposing scams, frauds, and new age nonsense for a long, long time. I'll take my chances with any jury in the United States, but this lunatic, and it's so ridiculous. Like, he thinks he's just going to walk into court. Remember how he knew that I stole the money out of his account? He took a bath in his own piss and said, "Who's doing this to me? Who's doing this to me?" And he heard, "Stephen, Stephen, Stephen." That's his proof. Are you going to walk into a court with a judge and a jury and say, "I took a bath in my own piss, and the Archangel Michael told me it was Stephen stealing that money out of my bank account"? And by the way, David, if this goes to a legal situation, I'll subpoena all your bank records and we'll find out what happened with that money. We'll find out what the real truth is. I wish I could subpoena it now. And, I love that he's always saying maybe we'll let Stephen take a plea agreement. You don't have criminal prosecutorial power. You can't give me a plea agreement. If you sue me in civil court, there's no plea agreement. He doesn't even know the difference between a criminal case and a civil case. He's a moron and an idiot, and he's getting his legal advice from another legal moron idiot, Corey Good. And by the way, David Wilcock, while you're sitting there getting a hard on, thinking about suing me and silencing me, how did that work out for your scam partner, Corey Good? Go look at his YouTube numbers, you dumb dickhead, if you think you're going to get ahead and you're going to silence me. I will not be silenced by a proven con artist. Full stop. You're not silencing me. You're not shutting me up. And by the way, David, do you know how many people are laughing at you for all these false accusations that you're making against me? Do you know how stupid you look to all but the dumbest of your stupid as rocks followers? People are sending me messages of support virtually every day. People that used to follow David Wilcock and believe him are sending me messages of support. Because, David, once people look at my proof and my material, they no longer believe you. So I know why you're so paranoid and have to delete every message that references me. I know why you have to stop people from even putting my name in your live chat, because you are a coward. You are a coward, David Wilcock. You cannot withstand the power and the glory of truth seekers. You cannot withstand the power of our research efforts. You cannot withstand the power of the overwhelming evidence to support what we say is true is true. You cannot withstand us. And I don't care. He has made this very personal. When he starts attacking my reputation, which is essentially an attack on my whole family, I'm not going to be silenced, David. So do what you're going to do, but shit or get off the pot. The boy who cried wolf. Oh, I'm going to sue this guy. I'm going to sue this guy. I'm going to sue this guy. You need money to do that. And you're broke, bitch. And there's a reason you're broke. And I would like to take credit for you being broke, at least a portion of you being broke. It's because I have been chipping away at your ability to scam morons on the internet for quite some time now. And I'm going to continue to chip away at your ability to scam morons on the internet. And I will continue every week to chip away from that echo chamber that you are so cult-like trying to build around yourself. You and your little hug box, right? He's in his little safe space where nobody can say anything mean. And let's not forget, when David Wilcock says that people are sending him death threats, he means mean tweets. No one's sending him death threats. No one is attacking him or threatening to kill him. It's theater for his dumb as rocks followers so that they feel sorry for him and send him more money. This is a typical scammer tactic that I've seen all of these guys use. They all do it. Oh, my information is so important. Look at Greer. Oh, people try to murder me. People try to assassinate. People assassinated members of my team because we're getting too close to the truth about those aliens. No, you're not. You're a con artist. You're a scammer and a grifter. And this is where we're at, and this is where we find ourselves, right? It's one of those things. Thank you, Chill Station 7. Rakita said I could sue you for coming after my grift, says Chill Station 7. Yeah. Could you imagine him going into court? Yeah, he sent me death threats. And then, okay, put him up on the screen. Show the judge the death threats. I don't think you're telling the truth, David Wilcock. Well, that's not a death threat, Mr. Wilcock. Do you have anything else? No, not really. Well, I do have that the Archangel Michael told me while I was taking a bath in my own piss that Steven stole money from my bank account. It's so bizarro. This whole thing is so bizarro. I was just talking to my wife and I asked her, I said, do you remember when we used to watch Ancient Aliens when we first met? This is like 20 plus years ago, you know? And she said, yeah. Could you imagine if somebody had come back in time and told us, like, hey, 20 years from now, that blonde guy that's lying to people on Ancient Aliens is going to be telling people that you got him swatted or you stole money out of his bank account or you're sending people suspicious packages. First of all, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't sent a package in years. No need to, you know? But thank you, Chill Station 7, for your kindness, generosity, and support. It's much, much appreciated. Yes, in his world, this is exactly what the problem is. David Wilcock exaggerates and embellishes everything in his life. Look how he turned an animal control officer leaving a card on his door into he got swatted. He didn't get swatted. He just repeated that lie on his last live stream. Oh no, Corey Good is talking about him getting swatted. Yeah, okay, Corey, you loser. Broke bum. They're both broke bums. I hardcore in his world, mean tweets equals death threats. That's the problem. He exaggerates everything. Sunny Call 1 with 5 says, keep up the momentum of your tenacity. He's playing victim out of desperation. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Thank God Almighty and praise the cash, friends. Yes. And I just wanted to mention, I just cut I just have taken all of the puppets from the new show, Internet Insanity Circus, that we've completed so far, little bits of puppets, and put them all together. I'm going to be posting that for you Patreon members and YouTube channel members. And please, if you dropped off of Patreon, I understand, but I'm going to step up my efforts to produce more members only and Patreon content so that we can get your dollar. Because, you know, brother, can you spare a dollar? It's rough out there. I could use those Patreon funds. And our Patreon dropped by like 50%, but it's my own fault. I wasn't posting there. I just got so busy with other things that I kicked the can. So I apologize for that. And thank you, Sunny Callie, for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. All right, so we are going to bounce on out of here, but I guess we're doing part 2 tomorrow night. I'll be doing that part solo. I have to respond to those clips, but honestly, it's going to take me 3 hours or 2 hours at least to do it. Macario has clipped a lot of stuff. Macario, we want to welcome Macario as a contributing producer to Truth Seekers. John mentioned that we should give him a producer credit because he really does produce all these clips, and both us and Hidden in Plain Sight are using all those clips. He should get a little more credit for what he does. I apologize for not doing so. So we'll add him to the credits in the podcast and video descriptions. So what can I say, friends? David Wilcock is losing his goddamn mind. He's going into full-on panic mode as his grifts are coming crashing, smashing down. And I'm here for it, and I hope you will be too. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you, especially you, David Wilcock. And may God have mercy on your soul for making all of these false and defamatory accusations and allegations against me. May God have mercy on your soul, because I won't. Good night, and God bless all of you.
all your dreams. Eyes wide open now, truth you can't disavow. Echoes through the halls, crashing all your walls. Truth seekers, exposing the truth. Truth seekers, coming for you. Uncover the lies, open your eyes. Shadows try to hide, no place for them to bide. Light will pierce you through, reveal what is true. Running from your fears, can't escape the sears. Truth will hunt you down, tear apart your crown. Truth seekers, exposing the truth. Truth seekers, coming for you. Uncover the lies, open your eyes. Eyes wide open now, truth you can't disavow. Echoes through the halls, crashing all your walls. Truth seekers, exposing the truth. Truth seekers, coming for you. Uncover the lies, open your eyes. Just when I thought I was out, they dragged me back in, but I had to come back. A last minute big support from Mike Larry, the MVP of one of the MVPs. We've got a bunch of you guys, and thank you so much. Mike Larry is one of those people who gifts all these Truth Seekers memberships. And for those unaware, you have to be a subscriber in order to win one of these gifted memberships. So when a kind and generous soul like Mike Larry gifts one of these memberships, he gifted 20 memberships. Big support tonight. Thank you so much, Mike Larry. When that happens, those gifted memberships get randomly distributed among people in the live chat who are subscribers but are not yet YouTube channel members. What do you get for a channel membership? You get a member's badge, letting everybody know you're a big supporter of the show, and you get a bunch of extra goodies in the members only section, priority reply in the comments in the live chat, and more. And tonight, due to the kindness and generosity and support of Mike Larry, like I said, I had to come back. I didn't want to miss this one. That was big support. Thank you, Mike Larry. Chris Powell was gifted a membership. Goutcast was gifted a membership. KC, Quantum Apotheon was gifted a membership. MM, Rigel the 7th gifted a membership. Jeremy was gifted a membership by Mike Larry. Rusty Shackleford gifted a membership by Mike Larry. Silence gifted a membership by Mike Larry. Brendan Caulfield gifted a membership. Div Hour, great user ID, was gifted a membership by Mike Larry. Phantomus Phanto gifted a membership by Mike Larry. Robot Gorilla Man gifted a membership. The MOC Master gifted a membership. Scooby 2 was gifted a membership by Mike Larry. T. Akiaso S gifted a membership by Mike Larry. Super Guy 64, JD Gamers gifted a membership. Crunchy 9000 gifted a membership. And Colt Jack all gifted a membership due to the kindness, generosity, and support of Mike Larry, big time show supporter. And we want to thank Mike Larry and all of you guys for your constant support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. And we'll give Mike Larry a big praise the cash moment. Thank you, Mike Larry, for helping us. Big praise in the cash. Thank you, Mike Larry.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity. Praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right, praise the cash. I'll check, make sure we didn't miss anybody, but I think we got them all. For those unaware, if you gift a membership, we read it out and we thank you. And sometimes people throw them in at the last minute. Yeah, Wednesday says, thank you, Mike Larry. If you got a free membership tonight, it's due to the kindness, generosity, and support of Mike Larry. So please be sure to thank him in the live chat. So we'll see if we can't try this again. I thought that was all I had for you, but I wanted to come back and thank Mike Larry for his kindness. So I'm glad that we did that. So now I think that's all we got for you. Until next time, friends, my name is Stephen Cambia. Good night and God bless all of you.
Truth seekers, exposing the truth. Truth seekers, coming for you. Truth seekers, exposing the lies. Truth seekers, open your eyes. They lie again. Have you had your fill? Let go of lies. Take your second red pill. I know you've had your fill. It's time to take your second red pill. I know you've had your fill. It's time to take your second red pill. I know you've had your fill. It's time to take your second red pill. Truth seekers, exposing the truth. Truth seekers, coming for you. Truth seekers, exposing the lies. Truth seekers, open your eyes. Your second red pill. I know you've had your fill. It's time to take your second red pill. Truth seekers, exposing the truth. Truth seekers, coming for you. Truth seekers, exposing the lies. Truth seekers, open your eyes.